Bitch, you guessed it. That's right. Bitch, you guessed it. Glah, glah. Fuck nigga, I'm saying. Bitch, you guessed it. Still in that place. And I'm flexing.
The plane landed, and when I came out, My granny, while on her deathbed, she turned and said to me, "Why must you view life so morbidly? I tried to teach you right, but somewhere I went wrong, 'cause you sing those death, devil, evil songs." When six pallbearers put her down and laid her body in the ground, my eyes were wet, my face was very long. The pastor said, "Son, here you are. Won't you please take this guitar? Sing, dear departed granny, one last song." And I sang death, devil, evil songs. Hell, you know that's how I get along. The world is full of tragedy, so how can it be wrong? Singing death, devil, evil songs. Well, I was shopping at Hot Topic, and I was walking out the door, when two dumb jocks came up to me. They said, "Hey, fag, it ain't Halloween." And they kicked my lipstick to the floor. And I sang death, devil, evil songs. Hell, you know that's how I get along. The world is full of idiots, so how can it be wrong? Singing death, devil, evil songs. Well, I went down to church on Sunday. I sat up front in a pew. The priest said, "Jesus and Mary too, son, what the devil's got into you? Get up and sing a hymn or two." And I sang death, devil, evil songs. And you know that's how I get along. The world's full of hypocrisy, so how can it be wrong? Singing death, devil, evil songs. I was invited to the White House. The president pulled me aside. He said, "Son, sing us a song of peace for those evildoers in the Middle East." I rolled my eyes and kicked this rhyme. I sang death, devil, evil songs. Hell, you know that's how I get along. The world is full of W's, so how can it be wrong? Singing death, devil, evil songs. Well, then I died and went to hell. I could tell right away by the awful smell that this was clearly not the pearly gates. The devil said, "Come here, young man. My wife and I are your biggest fans." So naturally I felt I had it made. Well, then he reached into an iron chest, and he picked the tool that he felt was best. And then he jabbed me in the schlong with a pitchfork that had sharpened prongs. He turned to me and winked and sang this song. He sang death, devil, evil songs. Yeah, I know that's how you got along. I find your song hilarious, but now your soul's precarious. Singing your death, devil, evil songs. I'm just kidding, kid. Welcome to hell. Enjoy the buffet. Death, devil, evil songs. Hell, you know that's how we get along. The world is full of sinners, so how can it be wrong? Singing death, devil, evil songs.
This is our cult, which you're now unfortunately a part of.
Boots. I know boots. Oh,
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, my green
Low
screen
cut
is
boots.
not fucking working right.
Time to choose my class.
Yeah, that fixes it. Also, I don't know why
Alright.
Photoshop just opened up.
I can see all the porn you've worked on.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that porn. Look at that porn.
Look at that. Why?
This is my spray during Left 4 Dead. I had that custom made.
Yeah.
You guys want a bite of my sandwich?
Why is the warlock a healer role?
Blood magic is a healing
Oh, look.
spec.
I'm gonna take a bite of my own sandwich.
Last time I checked, it heals only the person and hurts everybody else, including your teammates.
No, it heals everyone, including you. But the more you use it, the more it hurts you.
Ah. I'm gonna go with Magus.
Sure. You okay, Jamal?
Not really. Too bad it's not gonna last like that, though. Oh shit, maybe it will. I don't know.
That's right, kitties.
Bleh. And then... bleh. Bleh. By the way, I still got these ready. At the ready. For whenever we go back to playing Doki Doki Literature Club.
Doki.
Doki Doki Panic Source, motherfucker. Alright, start game. Wait, do I have to make an external account for this? Like on their website or whatever?
No.
No.
Alright, good. Because I was about to say I never did that.
Okay. So,
I don't like this nickname system.
what? You can have your character can have any first and last name, and then your nickname is your basically display name.
Yeah, but I don't need another nick. I don't need a nickname.
Well, go fuck yourself.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
Fuck you. You know what?
Fuck you.
You know what? I have an idea for a nickname.
What?
NITHILUS.
Okay, you said N-I and I immediately got worried.
Yeah, me too.
You know what? I'm just gonna Leroy Jenkins everything.
Sure, go ahead.
Let's
Looks
see
like
here.
that chicken-
I'm enough of a healer spec that I can keep you alive.
Already,
will try
I
to
love
die.
this main menu.
That sounds like a challenge.
I also love the fact that it's not capturing on the stream. Why is that happening? There we go.
I took all my games out. I made sure everything was capturable and working.
Let's see, what would be
No.
good nickname?
I have no idea what I do. Alright. So what do I do here? Do I just play now and that's it?
Yeah, basically.
Alright. Let's see what my account is first. Wait, what the fuck's my account? It says create new account.
Why would you? No,
Well, I
just
clicked the thing that said account.
why didn't you just click play now?
Yeah, but I wanted to see what that did.
Why are you making things difficult from the beginning? Why do you do this to me?
Oh, there we go. And the answer to your question is because I like being difficult. You should know this by now.
But yeah, feel free to watch all the videos, see which one you think is cool, and join them.
Behold, I'm drinking invisible drink.
Okay.
Look
Fuck
at
your
this
invisible
loading
drink.
bar.
I see a loading bar too.
Yeah.
I see the light. I'm running away from it.
Oh yeah, Grim, you'll find this cool. Look what shirt I'm wearing. It's my authentic Heroes of Boredom t-shirt from 2009.
Oh hey, yeah.
Okay,
I
cool.
still
I
have
can
mine.
keep. Cool. I can keep. skip cutscenes.
Also, I'm going straight Illuminati, so that's cool with everybody.
Sex, drugs, and Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Now you gotta create a character.
Oh fuck, who do I make?
You have so many classic characters. You can make Helga. Make.
Trump is an Illuminati.
No, he's not.
Yep. He sided with Trump.
This game takes place in 2012.
What is
Doesn't
this?
mean he
This
doesn't
is,
exist.
Alright, so I guess I should probably mention this. You remember last year whenever I played the park for Spookfest? Apparently this is its prequel. Or is it sequel?
Yep. Well, in the same universe.
Same universe.
I don't know timeline, but yeah, they're the same universe.
At first we made fun of this game. And I made a joke saying, "Oh, well why don't we play for Spookfest next year?" And then Grim remembered that. And now we're playing it, unfortunately. Much to my dismay. Oh, look at that.
It's not that bad. It's relatively typical MMO hijinks, but it's pretty well polished.
I don't know who to make. I mean, right now
You can also adjust your character size on the bottom there.
Oh, I can?
Yeah, make
Oh, it
yourself
only
taller,
does
short.
height. I thought it'd be like I can make a morbidly obese person. I want to be a cute little girl.
Make Madoka!
I was just thinking that. Alright, I'm doing it. Fuck it.
Grim, why? What have you done?
It's the only way he's going to enjoy this goddamn game.
Madoka Kaname. Who is pretty much just
Fucking
become my
grief.
fucking mascot at this point. There's so much porn of my mascot. Alright, let's put a reference photo
Wait,
up
where's
there.
Terry?
I guess he's not joining us.
Oh, shit.
Alright,
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit my waifu right
How
behind
much
me.
you knew that?
There we go.
Is Noob gonna join us?
I mean, I'll
No.
install it, but
It'll take forever.
I have 250
Noob's got-
download
Yeah,
speed.
Noob's got good download. If he can make it in, that'd
Alright.
be swag.
You can make it in.
Alright, so we're gonna try my best to make fucking Madoka.
Oh boy.
I love Monster Factory.
Is there any patching afterwards, or is it just a Steam download?
There's
Yeah,
a
there's
little bit of
patching.
patching, but it
There's
went
a lot.
quick. It took me like 10 minutes.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm already at 2%, so.
So this is like general head shape.
Okay, so I've run into an issue. Madoka really
But-
doesn't have a nose. What do I do? There's no
Look
option.
for the smallest one you can find.
Fuck, it looks like it's this one. Alright. Hair. First of all, it's gonna be pink.
Pink.
What the fuck?
There should
What
be
the
double-
fuck is this? Shit, I'm Sonic
I
the
don't know.
Hedgehog. Jesus. Gotta
It's
go fast.
Sydney on steroids.
It really is Sydney, holy fuck.
But yeah, there should be double pigtails for you. Somewhere if you scroll up or down. I don't
shit,
know where
there's
it is.
more. Okay. Alright,
What
let's
it-
start from the very beginning. Wait, is there more options? No, new. Alright. There's a few face options. Ugh. 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 This just reminds me, I have Black Desert Online as well.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Like, I
Oh,
bought
boy.
that specifically so I could fuck around with the character creation.
Just for that.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty good customization. What can I say?
Alright, there we go. Also, I should mention that I'm also part of the Illuminati, so...
Madoka always was.
Madoka's a part of the Illuminati.
Reference pic is needed, it's right here. I guess I should make it bigger.
Oh, by the way, Onion.
Yes.
For the it did crash. Stupid secret world. For the Black Desert. Apparently, when you create a guild, you do have the option to make your own custom symbol. In other words, an image uploaded into the game.
Oh, good god, yes.
Because me and Grim came across a guild that was using a Tim Allen from Home Improvement Pictures as their banner everywhere.
It was so weird.
You cannot take a guard patrol seriously when they have a realistic picture of him walking around.
Let me guess, it's the picture of Tim Allen, like putting his
Yes.
head on, or arm on his hand and everything. Like that,
Yes.
like, Photoshop
Yes.
one. Also, there's only one set of double pigtails, so I guess that's the one I'm going with.
But yeah, it's everywhere.
That's not how you build a hair, but whatever. It works.
You make do.
So far, I look like a pre-made sim in the herbs.
I mean that's all Madoka is. So let's be honest here.
Fuck
Her
your TikTok
eyebrows are
back.
literally thin lines, so.
So I probably can't join them.
Good
I'm
thing
not
because
be
you can't
honest
fucking
because
see my eyebrows. That's good.
I'm only at 7% right now.
You might be able
Well,
to join
that's
in.
fine.
Just do the minimum download.
I
Not
don't
the
think I
full
can
game.
check that. I don't know if I can do that.
Scroll for eye color. See what else you got.
Oh, I already got eye color. It's pink. Pink.
Alright.
Facial features.
You gonna give Madoka battle scars?
I'm gonna give
fucking
Madoka a fucking
gangster
Mike
tattoo?
Tyson tattoo. If I could change the color, I'd make that the blush, but
Aw.
Play now again. Cause fucking kicked me out.
Jesus Christ. How do you have a scar on your hair? Oh wait, never mind. That's just fucked up textures.
Magical girl. She can have scars wherever she wants.
Where can I give her the butt chin? I want to give her a butt chin.
Yeah.
Oh, I can give her the Dreamcast logo on her forehead. Sucks I can't see it though. I'll just cover her face in dirt. That sounds good.
What?
Alright, I guess I'm not giving any facial features. Ugh.
Hold on,
Ugh.
makeup.
How am I?
Remember, you can always adjust makeup color.
I'm just going through and looking at the makeups.
This is the first time Jamal's made a female character, so it's kind of hard for him.
Yeah, you gotta remember. Ugh.
Oh yeah.
So it begins.
I'm the soul of
It's
the
so
damned.
Edgy
See how I
Madoka.
got these scars?
It's only at 12 megabytes per second, so it's gonna take a while.
Alright.
Oh, I can give her face
But you-
camo.
I thought you had fast internet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 13 now, so 15. Thank you, Tip. You lost my internet.
You're welcome.
Night 17, 18.
Fuck, I think this is it. Select clothing. Hat. No hat. No glasses. Chest. That is inappropriate to streaming. I cannot do that.
Wait, is there nudity in this?
Yeah, the female models can actually be totally topless.
Wait, what?
Hey,
Oh, you mean
That's
bras,
pretty
okay.
good.
It really surprised me when cycling through the clothing, I saw that.
There's just nips and all.
Yeah, they're
Wow.
fully detailed.
Thank you for giving me the option for nudity.
For a new Madoka.
Also, Grim, be happy because Noob left my stream to download faster.
Alright.
At least that's his cover up. I gave him a grayed out. He better be fucking real.
Fucking.
Yeah, about that. I guess this is what I'm.
Shit.
Fuck it, that works. And then skirts. If I can get a skirt.
You need a red or pink one.
I mean, I have a red
Or white.
one, but it doesn't look
It
right.
doesn't match.
No,
Aw.
Okay, now I have a chain. I'm
I
gangster.
can get Daisy Dukes though.
Madoka doesn't wear Daisy Dukes.
Fuck it, we'll go with that. Ah, fuck. What do Madoka's shoes look like? This is probably gonna be the worst Google search I make all day, and there's a good thing that it's not getting captured by the stream. Madoka.
Madoka
feet.
cut shoes.
Oh god, never to self. Never fucking Google that.
Why do you think that'd be a good idea? Let's be honest.
Shoes.
You want me to just
I
like
can help.
send you a pic?
No, I figured it out. But the issue is do I have the required components? I don't think I do.
Probably don't have dress shoes now.
Fuck it. Large prostitute red boots. Got it. Now I forever have Madoka feet in my Google search history. Alright,
It's
select
Halloween.
class.
You can turn trick.
Where's Magical Girl?
So read through all the classes and like if you whatever you like.
Oh, it
Take
changes
as long
my
as you
outfit?
can.
It doesn't change your outfit.
What?
It gives you that outfit and you can choose.
Mercenary. Fucking Madoka's going into the Navy SEALs.
Oh Jesus Christ!
I'm just looking at the outfits really quick.
Alrighty. I will say this: you can change between your outfit that you chose and this outfit that you're wearing in the character class thing whenever you want.
Alright,
You can even
22%.
You can even mix and match.
Wait, is that a shield on my back? If I choose...
It's a
mage?
chaos focus.
I kind of want to go Punisher just because I have a fucking shotgun, dude.
You also get a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Oh, good grief.
Fuck, I should have just made Hamura.
There's still time.
It's plenty of time.
Take your time.
I mean, I've already
Am I done
committed to Madoka, so I might as well commit to this.
I'm downloading at 20 megabytes per second at 26%
Does difficulty really matter?
Not really, no.
What's difficult? Is it good difficulty?
Difficulty
Some-
just playing the class.
Some weapons are harder to
Oh.
handle. Yeah, but overall difficulty is not an issue. Once you get the hang of a weapon, it's all pretty easy. I honestly think the only hard weapon to balance is blood magic, just because if using too many attacks just drains your health. But would you like me to tell you the gimmicks for all the weapons?
Sure.
So, the sword, basically the more you attack, you generate energy, and then you can give yourself a buff, like all your abilities a buff. Claws generate instinct. You can use instinct to go into a frenzy, to either heal all your teammates or do massive damage to enemies. Sledgehammer, the more damage you do and the more damage you take, the more rage you build and the stronger your attacks get. Pistols. Pistols are chance weapons, so they're gonna have like revolver shells. You have to match up like roulette revolvers to get better weapon damage. Shotguns have different ammo types. You can choose between 4 unique ammos whenever you have to reload, and it'll change your weapon abilities. Assault rifles have grenade launchers that cook grenades inside of them. If you shoot it off early, it does damage. If you shoot it off late, it does a lot of damage. And if you don't shoot it off, it explodes and hurts you. Fire magic, or elemental magic, is cool. You use fire, lightning, and ice, and you have a heat meter. If you build too much heat, your character will kind of catch on fire and, have to wait before using magic again. You can stop that by using ice spells to cool yourself off. Chaos magic, you bend reality, do cool shit, but every 8th attack causes a random thing to happen on the battlefield. It can be good or bad. And
I'm probably just
blood
gonna go
magic.
Gunslinger,
Alright.
just because it seems like the easiest for me to focus on. So whatever.
Alrighty.
Nickname, Mastaonion, Madoka. Oh no. God,
No, so, yeah. Nickname is the one we're going to see. First and last name is.
Madoka Mastaonion economy. I love it. Let's do it. Play.
Also, if you want to choose
Is that not
which...
taken?
Surprisingly, it's not.
How?
Alright, I'll be quiet for your intro scene.
Yeah, I'll just mute myself. Let's see this shit. 1 week ago.
Heavily guarded perimeter around the site of last month's terrorist attack. The The Japanese government has stated that an unidentified radical political group released a biological agent in the Tokyo subway, less than 1 kilometer from Orochi town. Although the area has been evacuated, there have been eyewitness reports of activity inside the crypt, including ongoing fighting between Orochi security personnel and armed civilians. Authorities are denying these reports, and the military has barred anyone.
This fucking
from
Hornet's
approaching
gonna make me a
within
goddamn
100
contract.
meters of the
Oh.
perimeter.
Oh.
You will see the end of days. You will see the dawning of a new
I don't know why, but
age.
this feels like Sims 2 machinimas.
To be a monarch,
Like, this really feels like
or
a Sims 2
beggar.
machinima video.
To lose everything, or to become a god. To stand with us, or against us. The choice is yours. Remember this.
Why don't I have a blanket? Oh shit. I set my fucking jacket on fire. Oh shit, I've gone crazy. Yeah, this is me making a contract right now. Drugs are a serious bad thing. This shit is spooky. Look at all that. There's a crow over there, one over there too, one up there. It's fucking spooky as shit. It looks like there's fucking dolphins in the sky. A really fucking skinny dolphin or some shit. Like, it's fucking that one right up there. It's connected. There's two birds that look like they're the same bird, but it looks like a dolphin. Forgive me, I've lost my mind so far, the Spookfest. It's fucking exactly midnight. I need to reset my fucking VCR clock. Oh, that's some good frame rate.
Closer, child.
Please tell me this gets better. Please tell me the frame rate gets better.
You did do a minimum download, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah, so don't complain.
Oh no, is it gonna
I mean,
be like this forever?
Come on, if you want to like alt tab and like finish downloading, it'd probably be the best bet.
Why didn't you guys actually download it like weeks ago?
I
And I
didn't
asked.
assume that it'd be like this.
In
It
my
said
defense,
during
I
loading
wasn't.
screens.
You get a pass, noob. I know.
Thank you.
I know you do. You get a pass, noob.
Thank you.
Why does Noob get a pass? That's
Because
unfair.
I wasn't expecting to play.
Because
How do
he
bring up the
didn't
fucking
volunteer.
thing?
He said he didn't want to.
I didn't say I didn't want to. I was going to actually play, but then Terry's like, yeah, I'll play, so I didn't want to like push him out.
Dead.
He's kind of left.
This is wonderful. Let's just set everything the lowest. I think that'll give me the best bang for my buck.
Alright.
I mean, you have time to like finish downloading it.
Oh god.
The world
We are at
turns.
the night.
You must learn or be swept away.
Fucking beautiful FPS.
You don't get to complain. You fucked
I get
us.
to complain about a lot of things, alright?
You fucked us. You purposely fucked
I'll
us.
go back, download the rest of the game. Because I only intended to play like maybe an hour or two of this. But
Mastaonion, the pro streamer.
fuck off! Fuck yourself.
Damn.
What?
Which
I
one?
didn't
I'll
catch
go
what he
back.
said.
He
It's
set
a
up
Mastaonion in the pro
professional
streamer.
I'll go back, download the rest of it. I'll find something else to do in the meantime. How's it going,
Your little anime.
Shinji Rider? Hope
Don't
you weren't
play
coming
that.
to watch Secret World because we're gonna have to wait a minute for that. Who wants to watch me play solitaire for the next hour?
Oh, apparently Secret World didn't pay attention to me moving through the checkpoint.
What do you mean?
I had to backtrack to one spot, even though me and the NPCs moved forward.
How do I set this up to download the rest?
You have to download the entire game.
Yeah, I didn't. Since I didn't do it for minimum.
Oh, there we go. Full client apply.
Ugh, water down my windpipe.
Down my windpipe. Is it downloading? There's nothing. There's nothing.
There's nothing.
There's nothing. Unless it's gonna start doing it. I hope you like Secret Worlds Online. Or Legends. See, okay. Last year, we this thing that we do called Spookfest, which is a marathon. I played the park last year, and one of my friends was like, "Hey, isn't this an MMO?" I said, "I don't know. Let's look it up." And we found out Secret Worlds Legends is a prequel or something to the park. I didn't like the park that much. I made a joke saying, "Oh, we'll play Secret World Legends next year." I completely forgot about it, but my friend Grimhood in the chat didn't, so that's why we're playing it.
Yeah, I didn't forget.
Alright, hopefully that.
You think
downloaded
we're
the rest.
forgiven?
It says I have full client now, so fuck it, start game.
Alright, well.
I feel kind of bad because I'm actually getting viewers from playing this game. I haven't even started yet.
You haven't even started playing yet.
Game launch, so I don't know if I have the rest of it downloaded though.
I'm sure.
Good old
Probably.
Madoka.
Good old Madoka.
Good old Madoka.
What is it, Koopy?
I could have made Goopy, but that's lame. Hey, I got rid of frame rate. Yeah, I did it.
Thank you.
Refill my vape
See?
and we're ready
Oh, I
to
see
go.
now. It didn't download the frame rate.
Oh, yeah.
didn't
I
download
forgot
the
to
frame
download
rate.
the good game settings. Forgot to download the drivers.
Fuck you.
I forgot to input my graphics card. I was using
Fucking
the
idiot.
onboard this whole time.
I mean, I remember you doing that once.
Yeah. Shut up. Forgot to
So yeah,
download my
play the
eSync.
tutorials, read the missions.
If you have any questions, please ask. You're gonna hear a lot of questions. The most recurring one
Yeah.
is, why the hell am I playing this? I want to play more Doki Doki Literature Club, goddammit.
No, you really don't.
I do, though. I need to see what my waifus are up to.
The world trembles. You must learn or be
I know, just hanging out.
Dream
Hanging out.
Architect. Isn't that what Symmetra is? A Dream Architect?
Maybe?
Alright, let me try to figure out the controls. Okay, press shift and space. Nope, that's not. Okay. How did I do that barrel roll?
You double tapped. Or you press shift. Yeah, shift.
Oh, okay, shift. Okay.
It's that blue bar in the middle, it's basically your dodge ability. So if an enemy starts like doing a large AoE and there's a big wind up, you can dodge out of the AoE circle.
Oh,
Okay, Jamal, it's use to equip rogue deck. You're fine.
So I Dark Souls out of here.
Yeah, you can Dark Souls out of there.
Just so it's known, and I'm probably gonna have to repeat this a lot tonight. Never played an MMO before in my life.
Wow. Okay.
Played WoW.
I played WoW up until level 30. I don't always consider that playing WoW. I'm very new to the
I mean-
game. I don't even know what the hell I'm supposed to do.
Pretty
How do
okay.
you live until 2017 and not play an MMO?
Because
I
he only
mean-
plays first-person shooters.
He played Club Penguin.
Actually, I played
Oh.
Club Penguin and got banned within the first hour.
Holy
I got
crap,
sick of it, I
Grim.
just typed in fucking
What?
shit.
It's Ganon. He's in the subway.
He's in the subway?
How do I
Ganon.
interact? F.
Ganon's in the subway.
Yeah.
It's not.
You've woken up in your bedroom, which is transported into a small cemetery. Proceed forward and learn more about this dream. Alright. Thanks.
Then I should be already an expert in handling Ganon. This is Ganon.
This is one of the most single-player
Don't tell me it's not.
RPGs of them all, especially now. Interact with the
I
boss.
think he's.
Press I to
I
open
think
up
he's just a
the-
voodoo man.
Go have a gun.
I think he's talking about the giant pig.
Jamal, if you know, I'm almost done downloading, and when I'm done downloading, I'm
I
going
killed
to
Ganon.
The dead are rising to the siren's
I'm going to start looking at your stream on my phone. So be happy.
Yeah, I get the viewers.
Be happy.
Do I kill this guy? Cute.
basic abilities
popping a
are
cap
as
in his
effortless
ass.
as breathing, but
Put a
how
hole in that.
abilities draw upon
Alright,
I don't
so-
remember Madoka
Having a gun.
doing this. Yeah.
Should have bow and arrows, close enough, right?
I mean,
Close enough.
yeah, I guess.
It's a long-range weapon.
Silence the call.
To give a damn about this game at all, give a damn about the storyline developing.
Yeah, so, like I said, read everything.
Alright, so
Yes,
it's
please
more.
read everything. Take as long as possible.
Maybe not the
Oh,
Codex
fuck,
and Legend.
shit.
You can do that in your free time, but...
Alright. Left. Okay. It should also be known that I don't get along with MMO controls that well.
You see, our streamer friend here has what we call... Can't say on stream, but still, he's horrible.
I
He has
mean, I
the
am a
attention
pretty
span of-
horrible person.
What was
the
that?
Fuck.
The watchers will
I want to see the secrets. Is there a way I could play this in first person?
Every weapon
I swear to
Yeah,
God.
press Alt and then scroll your mouse wheel all the way.
Yeah. The Guild of World of Warcraft first person.
Basically, yeah.
Am I playing Russian roulette?
Kind of.
Select the version of the game to download. Minimum will download all content used in the first 5 hours of gameplay.
For a damage boost.
So all your abilities, or not all of them,
Speciality
but some of your
spotlight.
abilities, like
Pistols.
spins
Hold on,
the
guys, I'm
roulette
watching
thing.
Understanding the chamber roulette. Use your pistol abilities to spin
What
both
is this?
chambers.
Windows
When both
XP
chambers
goddamn
align, your
installer.
pistol's abilities do additional damage for a short while. The damage bonus increases based on the rarity of the match.
Okay, I'm gonna have trouble with this, I can already tell. This game's combat is not good enough in first person, but exploration can be. I'll do it. I like exploring in first person.
Why do I have to go into an instance to go to the Crucible?
I don't know. Shoot the BDSM corpse.
Oh, yeah.
Not you, but I mean, whatever floats your boat.
I like shooting people while they're tied up.
Hey Grim, the portal's open.
Jesus.
Oh, I'm
have
not
that
even.
option.
I'll skip this time.
I'm gonna go in then.
Apparently, I'm importing existing RDB hashes. Where the fuck that means?
Ah.
There are no valid targets. I cannot hit that. I need a target.
Oh no.
I don't have a target.
I need more mana.
Not enough wage.
I hear that too much.
I need a
I
target.
just want one. I just want one target to be out. One character to say, "I'm not fucking angry now. Fuck off."
Yeah, whenever I was launching this game earlier to install it and everything, whenever I saw the launcher come up, I thought for a second I had like a pop-up on Chrome. I was like, oh shit, my antivirus is dead.
Okay, I'm downloading the last patching resource database, whatever the fuck that means.
Defend yourself against even
AFK
more
good, though.
zombies. Well, that's a good.
So what
good
what team should I join?
I'm
Uh,
on the
any-
Illuminati.
Whatever interests you.
Because
There is.
Yeah. We can still party up even if you pick a different one.
They're all the same
Oh,
quest.
this is awesome.
They just have
Kinda.
different, like, hometowns and stuff. And I think you can't join together for PvP stuff, so...
Are you guys all? What are you guys all?
I'm
Illuminati.
Illuminati.
Okay, so I'll pick Illuminati because three of us, three new type. Then Debriak, are you Illuminati?
Ryric's Templar.
So I'll pick Illuminati. Fuck it.
Faction is now all story and cosmetic. PvP is gutted at the moment and not faction based anymore.
No, apparently it's not faction based.
Oh, okay. That's good to know actually. So we can.
You knew everything, Grim.
I'm only level 26, and I've been stuck in the beginning area waiting for you.
If I knew how to navigate this UI, I'd tell you what level I am. I think that one right there means I'm level 1.
They follow death.
By the way, viewers, that's how sad my life has been. I've been playing this game, still in King's Myth, and I'm level 26.
Yeah, he said he'd wait.
I mean, there's a the Pandaren that's
I'm running dodge build.
level 210. 110. Then just in the Pandaren starting zone, he hasn't effective action yet.
Double agent? Is he 110?
Yeah, he hit 110 a few months ago.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dude is seriously crazy, but infamous now.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Need to see more of my anime girl.
20 seconds. I downloaded this pretty fast, right?
Make sure you download the full game, otherwise you don't get your frame rate.
I did. Don't worry. I'm patching resource database 404.
I did the thing.
It's done. Look at that.
Hey, nice work.
I can't believe I actually have to talk about this real quick. My chat's going so quick I can't even catch up with it. That's never happened before.
Well, how many people are watching?
Not that many, but there's actually active chatters. That's not normal for my stream.
I
mean, one of them's also Buttspot, so... Dragon is the most buttic, but always a butt to it, bizarre as it is.
And mute. Okay.
3-man story dungeons, 5-man normal group, 10-man grades. Or raids. Grades. I feel like the quote system scares off new viewers a lot.
Yeah.
Buttspot is just a bot that replaces random words in your sentence.
No.
Go ahead.
Sorry, does it fuck up for you too?
Control R. Yeah.
Does it go like, okay.
That makes you turn into robot.
Yeah, so for some reason when I boot up the program sometimes, my audio is still crackly, and I found out that does it to my microphone too, so.
Open this to receive your reward. This chain. There we go. This is just like World of Warcraft.
It's happening. It didn't take long either. I should have known.
I told you. So I hit play now, right? I made a character.
Yeah, just make a new character.
Does it matter what server? Like, or is it
no, there's no server. Or if there is, I'm not aware of it.
Literally just the undead starting zone. I'm going down in the Undercity right now, guys.
Make the right choices.
Oh, going down to Agatha.
Agartha.
Agatha.
Wait, Jamal's going down to Agatha?
The quote system is the filter for her humor. You have landed in a dark and forgotten corridor. The way forward seems unclear. Look around for clues. Gotcha. This thing's highlighted, so I'm gonna take it. I've got a torch.
Your path will be equally puzzling.
Oh, my game is crashing.
Wisdom.
Oh, I think I lost the torch. What
does
happened?
Does Secret Worlds crash often?
No.
It hasn't crashed on me yet.
Yeah, so it hasn't crashed on me.
Nice crash.
So yeah, it's just you and Ryrik for some reason have really, really badly optimized games.
Oh boy, it's one of these MMOs.
God.
It scanned for your files every single time you launch.
Oh
So,
yeah.
I picked up that torch and dropped it immediately, so...
Fucking hell.
I guess I just lost it.
Yeah, Jamal, you don't know how dropping things in MMOs work. You drop it, you use it, it's fun.
Well, I'm fucked. Can't see shit. Oh, I can take this one. Secret World Legends does crash, but not often. Oh, fuck, it's a diamond heist.
Why is that a quote?
Armpit farts
What?
in my life. That would be Noob's doing.
Oh my god,
I'm already
Agatha's just
holding
killing my
out.
computer.
Agartha is the main hub, so I can understand why it's killing your computer.
Yeah, it's laggy for even me.
Come on,
Screw it.
please.
I'm gonna screw it. I'm gonna download the rest of this.
I did
Like
it. I beat the puzzle.
Good luck.
You are with the chosen.
Logging out to
You
download
must
the
choose
entire
for
thing.
yourself.
If it wants to be optimized, then fine. I'll optimize it.
Did you download the whole game?
Yeah, I'm gonna download the entire thing.
Yeah, I had to do
Not
that.
gonna.
Jack's heads don't stack. Ugh.
They don't. Just sell any extra ones you have, like for anima shards.
Oh shit, I need to pay attention. It's that generic Skyrim puzzle, I think. Yes. Thanks for the 15 face palms, Terry. I appreciate it. Look at them go.
Alright, open it back up. So I can Secret World. Alright, go to options.
Mall, Gartha. It's a mall.
Oh, okay, I see how this works. Okay.
I mean,
client.
yeah. It is basically a mall. Granted, I can't buy anything because I never open loot boxes, so I don't get third age parts or anything.
I did it. I beat
Why does
the
the learning
Skyrim
tree
puzzle.
get more and more red as it goes on? What the fuck? Okay, it's just Illuminati. Okay, pick Illuminati.
Okay, there we
Oh,
go.
there's blood, guys. That's spooky.
Spooky.
Spooky, scary skeletons.
Shiver down your spine.
I guess I just go down this hole. Ow, I bit my tongue.
Ha!
Thanks for the more 25
They
face
are the
palms, Terry.
cats prowling at the walls of reality.
Look at them go.
You are the mouse. It is best to
It's the
remain
best thing I've ever
unseen.
done with the jar. Alright. Yes.
A clever
Let's do
mouse
the thing.
creeps carefully to avoid stepping on a trap.
I lost my torch. Oh, but it's okay. I'm in Skyrim now. Which way to Winterhold?
It's not my place to intervene, but then
Ooh, nice work. Completing every mission.
I wish I could be that dedicated to anything. I'm still doing a legacy challenge for 10 years. Oh hey, these looks like they'll blow up if I touch one. Yep, confirmed.
Yeah, so don't. Why? Why?
I wanted to see how the animation looked. When I'm done with my tutorial, do you want to see a bunny on a unicorn? Hell yeah. Also, I don't know how many these are there.
Gemma, what's your character's nickname?
He's not at the point where we can add him to anything.
It's Mastaonion, just so you know. Just like all my usernames, but it's Madoka Mastaonion Koname.
You're currently downloading missing data.
Oh no! Wait, I can jump. Oh, now I
Alright,
can
Rick,
jump.
what's
I tried
yours?
to jump earlier. Oh wait, jumping's okay. I'm just...
He's also still at the beginning.
Control.
I can still add him to the friends list, though.
He can.
I was arrested.
Okay.
I just added you
Legacy
one.
challenge. Yeah, I'm talking about how inconsistent I am. There's a bunch of dead people in here. This spell looks dangerous.
where
Keep
the
your
cat
distance.
walks, the clever mouse will walk unseen.
Are you in noob or are you still
I'm
making
still
a
making a
character?
character.
Okay,
Still making
take your
a
time.
character.
Oh,
Oh no.
I guess I have to
Oh,
stealth
no.
or something. There's no way I could take that down.
Also, I like how the game this I don't know if it's default, but it put me in Black Hoodie immediately, which I find
Can
hilarious.
you crouch? Is that a thing?
There's no crouch.
Alright.
There's just don't let it see you.
Don't let it see you.
Don't get close to it.
When
don't
it happens, don't scream.
It's basically the Big Daddy from Bioshock.
Alright, time to enter King's Mouth.
Stay where you are, Rick.
Why?
Because
Can't
Well,
tell me
you
what
can-
to do?
You can
I'm your
enter
robot
King-
supervisor.
No, you're
Rick,
not.
what's
I don't
your
have a
character's
You're basically
nickname?
my streaming manager.
You already
My
know my
character-
characters.
Is it just Rick?
How incontinent
No,
are
I didn't put
you?
Rick. Because
What
I
is
don't
it?
want to give my character the name Rick and then give my character the nickname Rick.
Well, what's your nickname?
Well, how do you wait? Do you have to do that kind of shit? I hate games that make you do that.
Basically, yeah, first, last name of your character is just for flavor.
Can you
Your
just not?
username is the nickname, the one that everyone uses.
3691. Guys, 3691, 3691. I need to get into the
691.
bombers area.
Alright, so how do I know where you were at, Grim?
Well,
Because I'm waiting to go through the portal.
Not sure.
Gotcha.
No ABUs. You're done.
What's your username? We've been asking for a while.
Yes, we can't find you until you tell us that.
Really? You can't even
Yeah.
see me?
Nope.
We may not be in the same instance. Oh, there you are.
Oh, try again, sorry.
Talismans can protect you.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me. Like you saw me, like, wait, where?
No,
Bum
we're
me.
we're in different like zones or instances of the same area. So
See someone named Kyle.
Couldn't find me.
Hey, am I actually in the
Let me
MMO
remember.
section of the game? Are these real
Solo-
people or are these NPCs?
Solukari. Wait, Grim. SOLUKARI.
Oh, hey.
Spell that again.
Engage the creature rising out of the sewers.
SOLUKARI.
Don't hold anything back.
Okay, so do I just join in? Fuck it. The target is out of range for my pistol. God damn it. I like how to use a pistol, I have to stand right in front of it.
Come join our.
I guess I would come join your. Alright. You're downloading data. So it's starting to get a little bit
Yes.
stabilized because of. Hello.
Did I die? What happened? Oh, I think it's scripted to do that.
Oh, Grim died.
I love scripted events.
Yep.
Either that or I just suck.
I actually landed on something.
I missed.
There's one thing that you guys need to learn about me. Scripted events are my fucking kryptonite. Look at me juggle. Look at me go. Shit, my apartment's a mess. I didn't know I was gonna have guests. Fuck.
Somebody's been bad. I approve. Mind if I come in?
Who the fuck are you?
Time is ticking, so I'll cut straight to the chase. I work in talent acquisition, specializing in a highly
Right
unconventional
now,
sector
I'm
for
using
very
a strawberries and
particular
cream
client.
flavor from a
And they're
website called
particularly
Vape
interested
Juice.
in your kind of talent.
Doesn't really
Fucking
taste that
stuff
good.
up,
It tastes like
putting it back
vomit,
together,
actually.
altering the fabric of space
But I
and
need
time.
nicotine.
Basic thaumaturgy. My client is only interested in the best of the best. That's where I come in. Your talent is raw, but it's obvious. My client has the means to refine that talent and make the most of what you've got, and I'm not talking about money. Well, not just money. Protection, power, the best parties in the biz. We're prepared to give you a unique opportunity, a chance to prove you've got what it takes to hang with the big boys and girls, to rule the world. It's up to you to grab that opportunity by the balls. Based on what I've seen so
This guy's
far, you
standing on
might
my
be what
CD
I'm
copy
looking
of
for,
Sonic
or
06.
you might end up dead. Time will tell. Tick tock.
Tick tock.
You have an appointment tomorrow in Brooklyn that I'd recommend you keep. There's no address. Consider this the commencement of your official interview. Find us, or we'll find you. My client has eyes everywhere. Don't be stupid.
Gotcha.
Later, Gator.
I don't trust that man. He gave me the fuck me eyes.
TikTok.
Tick tock. It's like Tom Cruise wannabe.
My god, these characters move so slowly.
It's press X.
Yeah, I am in that mode.
Well
Upgrade
then,
it.
yeah.
So hit I. There should be a button that says Sprints and Pets. And then there should be a plus. You may not have enough currency for it though. I don't remember how much it costs.
This game just
Like,
looks like the
choose-
herbs to me, I'm sorry.
The herbs.
It really just looks like the herbs.
You apparently there's
Like, my
an anime
character
dash.
design is not helping me either.
Yes, there's an anime dash.
Do I have to put a first and last name?
No, I don't know. It's just flavor.
Yeah, it's just.
It doesn't mean
I mean,
anything.
I'm known as Madoka, Madoka Mastaonion Kaname, so. I'm sorry, with lowest graphics in this game, it looks like the fucking herbs. I play a lot of Sims on this stream. Welcome.
Alright, Jamal, find them before they find you.
Find me.
How long does it take Jamal to do the tutorial? We joined at the same time.
What's your opinion on the assassin new type? Either assassin or warlock. I can't decide. Well, it looks like a warlock has to be healer.
They don't have to be. You don't have to be any. It's the game's pretty freeform. If you don't like a weapon, just switch.
Ooh, this thing's highlighted.
So, what's assassin? I think assassin's melee and warlock's range.
Yeah, assassin can be melee range. They basically use swords and fireball, or elementalism, whatever. And
what is the purpose of this thing?
what thing?
This strip of tree we fell onto.
Oh, it's just a neat little Easter egg.
It's like it's just here.
No.
We're all
This Demolisher looks to be a tanky person, right?
This guy looks like Dick fucking Valentine.
That's why I keep the dry
Oh god, he does.
They bug my phones, read my mail.
be right back.
They have this place on CCTV. Replace my girlfriend with
I'm gonna Punisher. It looks
He
interesting.
really does look like fucking Dick Valentine.
the Illuminati. I know you know, and they know I know. You know? You're wondering why they haven't disappeared me. Shut down my
So
magazine.
over here, Rick, is the holiday stuff.
Oh, it's a game to them, you know? It's all just a game. Oh,
It's like no fucking
hi,
flash
Leah.
photography.
Don't worry, she's not one of them. She's in my D&D group. Role-playing is the only avenue
D&D.
to resist control. We do nothing. They don't tell us to. They've been conditioning us in every kind of media for years, okay? Example, Pac-Man. That's how they see you. Just a little head, just a mind share. And you run through the mazes they built, sucking down their pills. The fruit, the forbidden wisdom of Eden, never enough. And you can't shake the fucking ghosts, right? I mean, they're watching you. Their eyes are always watching you, even beyond death. This all adds up. That's where you'll find the Illuminati, at the dark center, in the ghost house, in the labyrinth. It's right here. Just follow the yellow dot road. That's all I can say.
All right.
So we don't take fall damage in this game.
No, we don't.
Dorks and dicks. Got that.
It's
I was
Dragon
saying
Age
earlier, Jamal, it looks like, but your character looks like Madoka went a really bad meth trip.
I mean, good luck making a convincing Madoka in this game. Trust me, I've tried. Find more surveillance equipment. Oh, that's good. The minimap tells me exactly where to go. That's perfect for a game for me to play. Hello. That actually helps out a lot, I say, as I run the complete opposite direction.
But yeah, I'll open my weapon stuff so you all can have better weapons if they so.
Follow the trail of surveillance equipment. Guys, this is
Eric,
just the Division.
I'm in a nice restaurant, and Benny here is doing
really
Gundam
is.
style in the middle of the restaurant.
It's just like real life.
But I know
Well, for a second, I thought
I'm
Bloodspot
not
just
inviting to a
became
restaurant.
sentient and started talking on his own.
Alright,
Every
Rick,
mission has the mini butt.
come here. Come here.
Wait, I go back to this. Examine.
What's
You
this?
are
What's
fucked
this?
at Mastaonion quest.
Have a better elementalism thing.
What's wrong with the one I have?
It's 1 star. This is 2 star.
Are you trying to say something's wrong with mine?
Is it?
Well, the one I have currently equipped says it has 101 with weapon power.
So
Yours says it has 50.
you can upgrade it, and 2 star means it
Oh
upgrades
good,
faster.
there's a labyrinth. I love labyrinths.
Fine. So
So
should
just
equip the new
The
one and
fucking
then
name of
upgrade
this
it.
quest is No Sleep Till
Basically.
Brooklyn. That's great. Oh, hello. What the fuck? Oh, there's somebody else in here.
Upgrade the new one with the
Alright.
old one as my sacrifice.
Oh yeah, guys, don't forget to fill out your bingo sheets. Oh fuck.
Bingo sheets.
There's no reward. Just do it.
Let me see what the bingo is.
We need to add more.
Make obscure
cards
anime
to
reference is already one.
that.
Skyrim stream.
Oh shit.
Something depressing happened.
How do I get a glancing blow with a shotgun?
I don't know if you aimed wrong.
I shoot him point blank.
You aimed wrong.
I did a butt shit.
I'll be right back.
I was really hoping it was gonna say Butt Zuckerberg or Mark Butterberg.
So how does shotguns work in type? I'm confused.
You have ammo supply. When it runs out, you have to reload, and you get to choose
Oh,
what
no.
kind of ammo you reload into it. They have
Set off
different
their alarm,
effects.
and then I got 10 cents.
I'm on it.
Oh.
Please, no head trauma.
Why is there a bloody wolf here?
It's someone's pet.
Fucking alarm.
It's just running around.
Have you ever
It's
seen
someone's
a
pet.
person void themselves from exposure to pink noise? Get these two freaks out of here.
Can I change what I want to do before I go into combat, or am I stuck with that until I fight next?
What, the weapon?
Yeah. Oh no, the shotgun, like the ammo type.
Yeah, I don't.
Hi.
Where's the
Have
weapon
you
store
ever
around
seen a
here?
psychiatrist or taken
isn't.
psychedelic
Oh good,
drugs?
I'm getting
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
bondage
whoa, whoa,
porn
don't
from
freak out.
fucking Doc
We got a
Brown.
lot of
Great.
narco-synthetics in your system
Brown.
to fast-track the rapport process. So make yourself comfortable
So-
before you lose.
Wait, they have
motor function
katanas,
in
but they
your
don't have
arms
regular
and legs.
swords?
You guys ever
Yeah, they
see
do.
Christopher
Go to the
Lloyd's
dressing
fake
room.
economy action?
No, I'm
Oh,
just fucking
okay,
around.
teleports. Nice.
I'm
He's
a
got the chaos
researcher.
emeralds.
An experimental research.
Dressing room.
Zern, my schedule is
Oh,
triple
so this is
booked.
where
So
you
get
can
started
decide
10 minutes
how my
ago.
stuff looks like.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, go on the
Miss
bottom.
Gary?
You can see all the swords they have.
Management.
You know
Still
something that
here.
makes
some
me
of them are actually
very,
pretty cool.
Knew
very,
that.
very concerned for myself. Help.
Wow.
What?
Illuminati.
So
Always
whenever a
there.
game has like
Okay.
a character that's all
Today,
technological,
we're
and shit
going to
like
be
that,
provoking
they only
your
have 3
extra-human
monitors. I
potential.
have fucking 5
Walking
right
tests,
here.
Psychic driving,
Like in
invasive
real life.
I mean-
procedures, auto-suggestion, and this is all
You
gonna
kind of
happen
just
while
have
you're under a
extra monitors
post-hypnosis
for the sake of
role-playing
having extra
scenario.
monitors.
Every one of them
I
has a
wouldn't worry
use for
about
me right now. The chat's
gonna
on this
play
one, the
you
game on the main
a
one,
loop
OBS on this
recording
one, the
of the
soundboard, and then my
catastrophe
TV's
in
just kind of on too.
And then
My TV's just kind of on.
chemical assistance.
So since your son came home, how much is your bill power bill increased? Oh, you know, tenfold.
Oh, nothing but.
I won't lie to you. This is gonna be an intense.
Okay, where I see it. What the fuck?
out-of-body experience.
Please press the send report button. Huh?
I'm pretty excited myself.
Send report.
Control R. It's a horrible hotkey.
And
Oh, I'm
subject
drugged up.
has left the building.
Left the.
So I hope you like going on a trip, Jamal.
Please, not after last time. I don't need to relive that.
You're gonna wake up screaming in the woods, terrified out of your mind.
Donald Trump caused this.
It's all shut down. Kaiden Cho, everything. From the park.
My character looks silly.
to
It's supposed to be
Rochetown.
I could have a
Madoka.
mine. Wait a minute, the mine's gonna have that kind of weapons? Those are the Aztecs.
Someone once told me
We
the
don't
Illuminati
need
had all the answers.
anyone to know that.
They're
That's
setting a
racism.
bomb. It's never just a bomb.
You don't need it.
I like how
Something
because of
Something that brought the
Oh,
force
Jamal,
with it.
I knew how to do this puzzle like instantly.
You're welcome.
That's what I've
Wait, you don't
taken
think,
This is
Grim,
now
you
a
don't think your
walkthrough?
ancestors should get credit for the stuff they did?
Sarah!
I didn't say that.
Sarah.
You just did.
I didn't.
Yeah, they've got the Mayans taking credit for their weapon here.
What do words even mean?
What does anything even mean?
I don't know. You ask yourself that, Jaden Smith.
Recommended
If
level
I-
2. What level am I? Shit. I have no idea what any of this UI means. Whoa. Oh, dude, I could move the UI around willy-nilly?
Yeah.
Shit. How do I tell what my level is, though?
What is this
Character
Skyrim ass puzzle?
I'm level 2. Gotcha. Oh, I can put my title as Gunslinger. I love the fact that it says Madoka Mastaonion Kaname. That makes me so happy.
You are the waifu now.
Fuck it, ground zero. Let's do it. Sarah's duffel bag. He's a magical girl. Select the shotgun tab to purchase a shotgun.
And finally ended all.
Gonna start a shotgun. Alright, I think I did this right. Yes. Done. Press I to open your inventory. Oh, there we go. Okay. There we go. I cannot delete that item. What?
That's a fucktown landmines. Cool.
Yeah,
Do these
don't
go
walk
off by
into
standing them?
Yes. What else would landmines do?
Oh, it's...
Speciality Spotlight.
Fucking ass,
Shotgun. Reloading
I'm
your
returned.
heavy munitions.
Welcome back.
The shotgun is loaded with 6 shells. Using any
Dad.
shotgun abilities will expend these shells.
Why
Once all shells are
don't jump on
depleted,
landmine.
every
didn't.
shotgun
It was fucking
ability will
electricity
be
water. I
replaced
just
by a
by accident
reload
killed me.
option for a randomized
It's
shell
electricity
type.
water. Of course it.
Yeah, well, I wasn't touching near the water. It was
There are
actually like on
4
the side of
types
the
of
water.
ammunition.
Oh, I have to wait.
Armor-piercing shells reduces the defense of your target.
Man, weapons, guns, and stuff look complicated.
Depleted
whole
uranium
reloading
shells
aspect.
deal a large amount of bonus damage.
You've got to pick what you want to pick.
Dragon's
Are
damage
you guys
over
in
time
Kingsmouth?
shells cause your attacks to restore a percentage of your
I'm not.
health.
So it's basically.
Where are you, Grim?
Okay.
I'll head
Can
your.
I not put my secondaries? Okay.
Oh, there he is.
Nice.
Hello.
Nice, nice.
We'll just wait here.
Okay.
Oh,
It
it's
looks
on,
like you just stepped out of the Matrix.
it's on the blood offering. Once you reach one end of the spectrum, not only does your attacks cost, your abilities cost HP, but no one can heal you until you get back to normal.
Yeah,
That's kind of annoying.
that's why you have to balance it.
Why are you going over there?
It does. Don't worry, it doesn't lead anywhere.
Oh shit,
that
we're
poor
Metro
lady.
now.
Alright, let's get there.
Well, that actually kind of felt good.
Nani?
You're already dead.
That's what you guys.
Hey, Joe, boo.
30 minutes.
See, you're already in Japan fighting
What the fuck's
witches.
the password? What? Password for this thing?
Fighting witches.
Gotta figure it out.
I gotta keep
Yeah, it's
up
a
my
puzzle.
other content.
I'm trying to hurry here.
Take your time, dude, because I want to take a path of breaking the
Yeah, Jamal's still going through the tutorial. So.
3691.
So the last stream is of the future, this stream is of the past. Gotcha.
Thanks for the encouragement, Alex.
Hey Grim, why don't you post your nickname in the chat so the guy can show off his things?
Occult disasters, right?
Oh, sure.
You really have to stop meeting like this.
Don't let it get on you. Don't even breathe in.
Well, your nickname's
Yeah, the users of this game
Mastaonion.
surprised.
And now you're no longer
it's the Latin root word for basically, kleptomania. Surprisingly, for as much ancient Latin that is used in this game, a lot of users don't have nicknames based on ancient Latin. Also, if you're adding me to friends lists to random streamers, I don't know what's up.
That's your plan?
Dude, look at all these cigarettes in here.
What are you doing? I just see you flying, raining down.
This is basic enough that I can understand what's that. I was afraid I was gonna jump into this without knowing anything. This Harry Potter motherfucker. Is that Dick Valentine though?
I think that's Dick Valentine.
Hey, it's the station master.
Yeah, you can talk to people, find out what their deal is.
Yeah, and I can do that.
Yeah, you can keep talking to them until you see a check mark. That means they have more things to say.
regroup with the team. This guy has like diarrhea shooting into his ass or something.
We're gonna need to use some heavier powers. Don't hold back, right?
I was pissing myself. Press N to view skill window. Purchase 2 passive skills for your primary weapons. How to do... Oh, passive skills, gotcha. Okay, I guess I have to do pistol. That unlock, press that.
Huh, there's someone here called Sector 9. Because, you know, that's a nickname.
Listen, Sarah. You have to find Zuberi. We'll hold them here. Make a stand.
Why is there a nightclub here?
Shit, New York's
I don't know.
time,
I think it's just a natural human thing to monetize old cool stuff.
That means like underneath the nice restaurant above.
Yeah, that's New York.
I mean, that's just like... The sound will go everywhere. Including into the nice quiet restaurant above.
Okay. Did it. Killed the filthy man.
Can I shoot the seed of life?
No, why would you want to do that?
Why wouldn't I?
Plenty of reason. Life.
Equip
Name
new
one.
gadget and right click. Oh, cool. What is this? I thought that said warm churro. Let's equip the warm churro. Oh, I
A
thought
warm curio.
Oh no.
Are we synchronized?
Warm churro.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yo, there's a thing. What is this thing? Oh, it's a
Oh,
legend.
we're off sync. Where are you, Onion?
Place.
He's in the subway.
I'm getting a foot long.
$5.
Foot long in the subway by this guy over here.
Hey, Jamal found a honeycomb.
I found a honeycomb.
The filth.
This game actually doesn't look as bad as I thought it was going to. It doesn't look like garbage.
I mean, it looked like the herbs for me earlier, but that's because I had everything on lowest.
Gaia's power.
Man, this game is like 5 years old.
Against the filth.
Yeah,
I thought this game came out like last year or something.
2012.
I thought it took place in 2012.
It
came out in
does,
2012.
'cause it came out in 2012.
Oh, I thought this game came out recently.
And it's just relevant to that time, because it was, you know, everyone thought the world was going to end. Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now I'm basically
know
just
about the
playing
update.
a combination
Jamal.
of Division and Metro.
Oh, it says in jump off the cliff. Oh, this guy, there's a bridge. There's a guy jump off. Not good. That's it. Talking myself, sorry.
No place like London. So where's that need coming from? The New York?
I guy was walking around town with a shotgun, no one cares. Hey, I'm here to do my laundry. Is anyone here? Can I wash my shotgun here?
It was 2012. It was a different time.
It sounds like the NRA really
Yeah, I
made
was
some
only
headstrong
16 in
moves
2012.
into the...
Wait, did I just fucking Legend of Zelda?
Remember in 2012 when we started playing
Oh.
the...
Oh.
Oh, hello, lady.
Wow.
You like what you see? Is that what's going on here? An NPC just came right up to my character and is just like breathing down his neck.
It's a giant pig. It's Ganon. Be Ganon, Jamal.
I need the Master Sword.
The Master Sword?
I need the Master Sword. Somebody else
Why?
watched my fucking
Oh my god, that was such an easy thing we could have exploited. Why didn't you make that a thing?
What?
Master Sword.
I use that all the time, dude.
No, you didn't.
I swear to God, if you go back to my fucking Legend of Zelda Let's Play from fucking 2012, I named one of the fucking episodes that. I'm not shitting you. I use that all the time. I had that as a named sword in Minecraft. That's how autistic I
crash
am.
for me again.
They're not. Look out!
Crashed on you
It's all
again?
coming down.
Yep.
Wait, am I talking right now? Is that my voice?
My God, it's almost 1 o'clock.
It's fucking almost 2 for me. Oh, I
That's
love
how long it
RP walking.
takes.
RP walking.
How long it takes
Press-
Gemel to get into this?
I don't even understand how it took him that long to get there.
Hey, listen, I'm going through at a decent pace, I think.
Graham, what is my character doing?
I just rushed through the tutorial.
There's chicken nuggets flying in the sky.
I don't know. What are they doing?
I don't know. So I said I didn't click on anything. He's just doing some weird little hand wavy thing. I don't know.
That's spooky.
Spookfest.
Is he like writing letters in the air?
Maybe.
I can see what you mean by like.
I seriously don't know what my character is doing. It's creeping me out.
Jamal, I think I get it because it's the way that everyone fucking moves.
Yeah. I mean, I said earlier, it seems like a Sims machinima.
Overstimulated. Higher brain function.
It's like he's petting an invisible dog. I don't know what. I don't know what's going on.
He's just digging the music, I guess.
Have you ever seen a jaguar tripping?
Yeah.
Well,
you ever seen a jaguar tripping?
Look it up sometime. Hey, you'd better haul ass to the test chamber.
He said, yeah, Swoby says you're doing magical blood writing, describing reality.
Okay.
She's shiny on that bridge. Where the fuck how to get?
I mean, it's gonna fade, really.
Which bridge?
And as your doctor,
I see a fucking scaffolding.
caution
Okay, it's another one over there.
strongly caution you,
Fucking panic.
don't try removing it. Okay.
Wait, your social thing? Can I like?
You gotta do your social
Oh yeah.
links.
Warthorn, what's your character's nickname?
Move around to gain
Warthorn.
your senses.
Just Warthorn?
Yeah.
Alright.
You're gonna love my actual name because I couldn't think of one, so I just did something stupid. Don't say it out loud. No, just don't say it out loud because if it shows up because I want Maul to say it.
This was after it had been publicly shit-canned, obviously.
I added him, don't worry.
Mind control.
Cool.
Wow, that's a great field.
What's this thing?
Potential.
Learn.
So who are we
I just
missing?
learned something. Illuminati, pluck the petals, and you chat. What the fuck?
You can still invite him even though he's not here, I think.
Who, me?
Man has explored many
Yeah, Jamal, even though he's not in an area where he can reach.
Medical,
How much further in the tutorial do I have to go?
Until you reach Kingsmith. You're not out of the tutorial yet. You're close. You're almost done.
Almost done.
Yeah, like.
Whoa. Oh,
How do I put my weapon away?
Is this a morph suit? This
A
girl
really
here?
jaded and abused superhero. That's me.
He looks creepy.
Goal completed, Joe.
Oh, Ryu, to answer your question, my character is an OC of mine.
I already guessed that. Never asked.
Oh wow. Rude.
Fucking brutal, dude.
So rude.
You can
So I
wear
didn't know it
pretty
would
leather
show your
gear.
name.
I want some pretty leather gear.
Like, I recognize the name.
When did I walk in the fucking Star Trek, man?
I'm in the sewers. How close am I to Jamal?
You're getting close.
Remember,
Just keep
pace
following
yourself,
the.
I need to go.
PD.
I need to go fuck Grimhood's bowels.
What?
You heard him.
Fuck my mouth.
You're fucking taking ass?
Yeah. Let's see if I
Again?
can pull that quote. Shit. You got shit done then. Make contact with the combat guy.
Talk with the comeback man.
Dude, I love iPhones.
Initializing
Illuminati.
field performance module. DNA encoding.
Aluminum.
Syncing.
Oh, there's
Sync
emotes? Oh,
complete.
goddamn.
Field
Of
performance
course there is.
module
It's an
on.
MMO. Gotta be able to express yourself somehow.
Read the SMS. Okay. Oh, okay. Fuck. No, that's... How do I open up the phone?
Just press Alt,
Alt?
to. Yeah.
Oh,
Freeform the mouse and then click on it.
Hey
So
there,
how do
I
I
really hate the light of
shoot
fire
weapon?
under your ass. We need to hurry things along.
See, even she knows you're taking too fucking long in the stream.
Jeez, I'm sorry.
How do you sheath your weapon? What the fuck? There's
How do you-
different.
Oh shit, I have a fucking AK. You must have trained for
How do I not hold my shotgun out like a fucking idiot?
Press X.
See, I was not the only one, Grim.
It's World of Warcraft thing. I don't like holding like gun so randomly.
Yeah, see? Both Rurik and Warthorn asked. I asked him, and he's like, it's not a thing. I instinctively have to sheath my weapons when I'm playing World of Warcraft. I can't not walk around holding my weapons.
Yeah, it feels weird as holding two giant fucking maces. Like, I mean, kind of weird to have in my back too, at least.
Yeah. So basically, put the green gun in that little.
Yeah, I'm already doing it.
All right, yeah, and then put all the like gray
Remember,
weapons
it
into the
takes
bottoms.
me a minute.
It's hard the asshole.
Assemble. I did
It's what?
it.
It's hard the asshole.
Are you asking?
Of my OCs? Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Why?
Kinda guessed it.
Yeah, he's the spoiled rich brat that hacks computers for fun.
Just right click.
I can't move my camera while doing emotes. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
You can press Alt. Press
it
Alt.
still doesn't work quite like how you think.
Grim, it doesn't work
Exit
as
the
quiet.
test chamber and meet your primary contact. Got it. Bada bing, bada boom. I'm good at video games. Watch it be
Oh
funny,
god,
but I'm
Grim is
doing the wrong
screwing
thing.
up dancing.
So why is the fact that it says telling me to follow these symbols, but there's one behind this wall I can't get to. Fuck.
Just keep following the symbols.
How's this
And
graffiti?
it's a ghost. I can fucking go through walls.
That's graffiti?
That's what my character was doing earlier, but I didn't click that emote.
So creepy.
I guess I would drink something.
Okay, shit.
Do I have anything in my hand?
Boom, boom.
No.
Boom, boom. Yeah, did it. Alright, cool.
I'm gonna kick at dirt.
Like, up there. That's where I go.
Gonna do a handstand.
The amount of like detail in this animation makes me laugh.
For the handstand.
Yeah, you're right. That's funny.
So yeah, you can upgrade all the weapons.
Oh, cool. A honeycomb.
I don't have a phone in my hand, even though I have a phone.
I'm upgrading my
Wait,
health.
Jamal, yours finding those now? I found like 5 of those already.
Oh.
Like a rock on my heels? Really?
Yeah.
Jamal, what are these things anyway that me and Jamal are finding?
In lore
There's another
bits.
one. Can I say how many I already have or no?
Somehow, I haven't really looked into it.
So Laria, or whoever just asked to meet up, we're basically at the main Agartha.
Thanks for the
like,
10 faces.
You're either in or you're out. The
Add them to the
Illuminati are
pile.
very achievement.
You'll find
focused.
3 guys in front of the jump
Xbox,
pad
only
for
everything's
Kingsmith.
hardcore. The ethic
Where I don't
really
see the
want to
Oakley
instill in you
glasses.
is to aim high and achieve even higher. It's not just
keep
in your
looking.
best interest,
They're
it
there.
reflects on me too, and that is super
I see
important.
goggles,
Make me look bad, I'll mount
sunglasses,
your head
right?
on my wall. It's an
A
object
lot of
lesson
stuff
to
that
the
doesn't
next
really
fuck
seem
up.
like to have a pictures.
God, it is so cute
Just
when
click
you
on
guys
it.
think I'm
So when
kidding.
you click on it and it'll show a preview on your character.
Solomon
Like
Island.
click on the
I all I
A
can
town
see
and a
is your
preppy
character's
school with
ass.
Connections to us have kind of vanished off the coast of Maine. The people aren't a major deal. Do you know how many disappearances there are in the United States every year? We do. But our noses need to be totally clean on this one. The military are involved, and we have limited bandwidth to stall the shitheels at the DoD. Give an old dude a red button to press, it's like Viagra to them. I want you out on Solomon Island to assess the impact on our bottom line. You can skip the traffic and the quarantine by traveling through Agartha. Just use your initiative, but not too much initiative. That comes across as desperate. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Favorite character?
Did somebody just come back?
Yeah,
Oh, hey, Terry's here too.
Hey Terry, what's up?
Terry came back?
Mr. Bones' Wild Ride. That's the
Don't worry, guys.
title.
Barry Blue Jeans is here.
Hi, Terry.
Mr. Bones?
How about then?
Oh no, that's not a title. Lava Game Champion is the title. Mr. Bones' Wild Ride is apparently their cabal. Is it your cabal? You work for us now, Blue Eyes.
You work for us?
Alright, bye.
Okay, I guess I'll jump out then.
Oh, I found a scarf. I'm happy.
It's for 5 people, stupid.
Yeah, me, Ririk, you, me. Yeah, it's just 6 of us
No,
here.
well, fuck it. I'll just walk around.
No, you're fine. I'll jump out.
No, you can walk. I don't know how many people could be in a group, so let's test that out.
I think you said 5 earlier.
That's World of Warcraft's limit, but this isn't World of Warcraft.
Out of curiosity, how much of the tutorial do I get left? Like, on a scale
Yeah,
from...
you're basically done. Just head to Agartha and that's it.
Alright, cool, because I really gotta shit, I'm sorry.
Yeah, head to Agartha, meet up with us, we'll let you shit. Also, nice Playboy Bunny
We'll
outfit.
let you shit.
We'll allow it, Jamal. Just this once.
A
Okay?
unicorn! A buddy and a
Stupid mission
unicorn!
text, I will cut you.
Ah, I get it.
How do I go inside the building? Or unless I walked around it. Fuck, I'm just...
You walked around it.
can't,
It's inside the building.
I can't concentrate, I need the shit.
It's inside the building. You
I
were
have to
there.
poop.
You're in the wrong way.
I have to poop.
Stop making things difficult.
I'm sorry. I really have to use the restroom.
Go back into where you were.
I found it. I did the thing.
Thank you. Alright. I'll invite Jamal to the group.
How do you change weapons?
N.
Really?
Yes, I
I
want
mean-
to travel through the wall.
So I can't go from my shotgun to.
Mr. Poopy Butthole.
Oh no,
I can't.
so you start out with 2, and then you have to purchase the rest
Yeah,
of them.
how do I change from one to the other?
Put one in your main hand and one in your offhand, and you use
Well, how do I-
left and right click.
I for inventory. And then
I'm trying to pull
there's
my
your weapons. There's right there.
Lore. 5 is Max group.
We have a different word for the word lore here.
Why can't I change on my fucking steel chamber? Yeah, Terry, if you want to join, I'll just get to the thing and then play later with everybody. If
This is the Hollow Earth, Agartha.
I was kind of joining in.
I do hope you're not here for the local service. It's running somewhat tardy. And by my watch, it's 100 years overdue at 1/4 the hour. Judging from the cut of you, you're more of a world traveller. Well, you've come to the right place. This underground realm, like the great British rail system, is the very model of efficiency. Agartha's thoroughfares sprout from the Tree of Life and connect back to the surface. Distance and time bend in here.
This guy just
Why,
reminds
you
me of
can
Tom
cross
Hanks'
the globe
character
in a
from
brisk walk. Of course,
that one
it's perfectly
Christmas movie.
safe.
The Polar
No one's
Express.
entirely sure how it works. Quite bedeviled the science boffins, but I'm assured they have their top men on it.
Actually, I
Top
had a
men.
principal in high school look just like this guy. It's just now he's wearing like a Nazi hat.
Now you'll need one of these. Mind your fingers. Thank you. Fascinating devices. Fortunately, there's still enough to hand out like sweets.
Like
Consider it
sweets.
your anchor to the Hollow Earth. It can return you here in a flash, proverbially and quite literally. Well then, onwards to the New England coast, what?
Alright. Oh shit, do I have to RP walk here? Fuck. What the fuck? Oh no. Everything's dying. Oh, there we go. Beautiful, flawless.
Alright, I'm gonna invite you, Jamal.
Hold on, the game's currently exploding.
Oh yeah, you're in the main hub, so there's everyone is here.
Yeah, that's what I
Oh
figured.
yeah. And also, 50 less frames.
So, where are you guys? Yes.
That was a pretty quick shit.
What's your...
Playing
It'll ask you to
Sims
meet
is
up,
a group.
maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alright, once I get there, I'm going to go expel my anus.
Oh, he hasn't done it yet.
What's it gonna say?
Sildar, there we go, invite you.
Left onion when he's inside.
I want to find
He's
you guys
inside
and then
me.
I'll go. Oh shit, spooky scary skeletons.
You scary.
Spooky, scary skeletons. They said
Shooting down your spine.
Lag, Agartha. You press.
How do I emote?
Oh.
Oh. How do I do it? Unowned. Oh, I get to do cartwheels. Don't look at my panties.
Then you click one. You go poop, buddy.
Yeah, I want to find you guys first.
I'm standing next to you.
Wait, is that you, Todd?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Todd?
Yeah, it's my character's name.
You're not my Eggman.
Hey, guys, check out this cool trick. Ririk. Look at me.
What? You gonna cartwheel off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's Grim and Ririk?
I
You're
jumped off the
outside.
pine tree.
This way.
Click me to the others. Oh,
Push X to go faster.
X.
Yeah, X is your sprint.
Oh. Hold on, the game's lagging. Press X to lag.
Press X to lag.
They're both over here.
I should finish the game. Oh, yeah,
Hey.
My character looks badass.
You're blazed by beauty right now. Blazed. Why does this thing over here look like SpongeBob?
It's a message board for raids and stuff.
It's a group finder.
So now we gotta wait for
I'm here.
See you later. I'll watch the stream, I guess.
Alrighty.
Wait, you're not playing?
Yeah,
The maximum
we
five.
only have 5, and Terry was already like set up to play.
Oh, okay, in that case. I'm going
Alright,
to go
Jamal.
AFK. Hold on.
Alright, go AFK.
I'm gonna
We'll
get push-ups.
How do I go back to the hub?
go
Agartha?
back to the Agartha entrance.
If you look at the map, it should be a tree. It look like a tree icon.
Alright.
Who's this person? And just making circles?
It's a NPC. It mimics what a player does. And I shall be right back as well. I must. And
Alright, I'll be here, I guess.
I see Onion.
Yeah, he's here now.
Can you even see my preview outfit that I was looking at?
No, you can't see it unless you confirm or get out of the menu. So who is the bunny horse? It's intentional. If you go,
I see the pro version.
yeah, you have to I think you have to do an achievement to get that.
I think you have to buy it.
Probably.
Oh, I can do the funny chicken. Or the running man, even better.
Oh man.
Gangnam Style.
Oh, better. The Macarena.
Macarena.
Yeah.
And Macarena.
You know, a song from the 90s that pretty much no kid's gonna know these days.
Wait, this game takes place in 2012. When did Gangnam Style come out? Wasn't it after this?
I'm pretty sure it's after. I'm gonna slouch.
I have to go
I'm
Google
gonna put
this
my
now.
hands on my hips. I'm Superman. Now I'm gonna put my hands behind my back like I usually do.
Huh. Apparently, Gangnam Style came out in 2012.
Huh.
Wow, that was 5 years ago.
I'm wounded. Yeah.
Yeah, July 15th, 2012. So, wow. Okay, I guess this is a time-appropriate dance. It felt more recent than that.
Heh. Too bad I can't push Onion off.
I know. I tried.
Let's all do Gundam style around him. Surround him and do Gundam style. And just wait here for him to come back.
No, I think I'm gonna leave after all. I don't think I want to be with you people anymore. I'm just gonna
Why not?
forget that I know any of you actually.
Oh, come on,
Aw.
join us.
Hey, Grim.
Yeah.
I think I'm doing it better than y'all.
What? I'm not.
Yeah. I'm up in the sky, aren't I?
No.
No.
Noise.
I could also do this.
Macarena.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just all just be doing it different.
Okay. What? The samba.
So, where are you, Harry?
The
I'm
sprinkler.
trying to make my way back to Agartha.
Where are you, though?
You can
I'm
quick
in
travel.
Kingsmouth.
Do you need me to escort you?
Bottom. Yeah, it's like we can come find you.
No, I'm almost there.
Alright.
I'm not incompetent, unlike some people here. Benny.
Oh.
Alright, I think I found it. I got an SP.
By the way, you know that post
No.
of the guy in the black morph suit with the pumpkin mask doing that dance?
You can do that in this game.
Yeah, it costs like 900 orm to get, but it is the dance he does.
And you can get a black morph suit and a pumpkin head, so you can recreate it.
I need it?
It's called the spooky dance.
I should not
How do I
preach
do
to
the
y'all.
How do I do the Halloween guy? Because I have like a couple of things that I can open.
I'll show
we
you.
can show you.
Yeah, Jamal won't be able to do it until he reaches the Cowboy Man in Kingsmith. Once he talks to Cowboy Man, then we can come back and the Halloween event's already up, so we'll have to wait for it. Don't you fall off?
Alright. Where are you at, Terry?
Yeah, see, Grim?
Coming.
Did you go to click on the Agartha portal?
I'm in the Agartha.
Also,
Okay.
Rick, if
And
you
there
want a
goes my frame
motorcycle,
rate. Oh, wait, there we go.
What?
if you want a motorcycle, click on the menu in the top left and look for login rewards.
The anima shards?
Anima shards, but there's also in the top right of the daily login rewards window, if you click the left arrow.
Claim
Free
reward?
mount. Yeah.
Well,
So
it's
now
not
you
really a
can-
free mouse, it's just the same exact thing as I have right now.
You already have the mount?
No, I mean like the sprint level 1.
Well, yeah, but it's
Right, it just looks different.
Hey, Barry Blue Jean. That's alright, so let's all surround him. Yeah, Rick, get on that side, I'll get on this side.
What should we do?
Just anything. Any dance.
Should we try to sync it up?
Maybe?
Same
Alright, so
dance, maybe. The Macarena?
yeah, let's do the Macarena.
Alright, everyone got it highlighted?
I have it.
On 1.
Yep.
3, 2, 1.
We're all each like a second behind each other.
Yeah. Oh, it turned and it fucked it up. I'm sorry, everybody. I screwed it up.
Seems like some weird hazing ritual.
So how do I get these gold bars?
You can
There's
go.
Yeah, the currency exchange. It's like an auction house. It's inside Agartha in the big room over there.
There's a Patreon bonus. Huh.
Yeah, Patreon.
Yeah, if you pay the monthly like subscriber fee, it gives you like loot box keys.
Yeah.
So it looks like me and Grim went the create a OC route, and you two, Ririk and Terry, went the semi-create ourselves route.
Yep.
No,
Oh.
I'm Barry Blue Jeans.
Barry Blue Jeans.
Okay.
You're not Macarenaing.
I accidentally hit the wrong button. Okay.
Ah, we gotta sync up
Let's start
now.
it over again.
Yeah.
But we could probably sync up better. Alright, on 1. Not 1, then go, not me. As soon as I say 1, you hit it.
Alright.
3, 2, 1.
Not quite.
Well.
But...
Not quite.
Yeah, Orem equals money payment or exchange marks gotten from daily challenges or selling on the auction house. Oh, are we what? Never mind. My bad.
So let's see, was it Shift J? So Shift J shows you dailies you can do, and those give you
I
marks.
actually think me and Grim synced it up. Benny looks like the furthest one behind.
Oh,
Probably. My ping's probably higher than everyone else's though.
alright, so let me add what that friend.
Yeah, Benny's the last one to turn. Me and Grim got it synced up.
My lady.
You know what we're missing right now?
What?
A Hispanic woman with a red-tipped microphone.
Yes, I miss her too.
No, you don't know her.
Oh, sorry.
You don't know her either, Grim.
I do.
You guys
You're
know
a
what the really
child.
funny thing is?
My mom had the
I was watching
to
you
us
guys
this whole time.
while I was defecating.
What? You had your headphones on this entire time while you were defecating. He
No, I was
doesn't do
watching the
that.
stream.
Oh.
I saw you guys all just start doing the Macarena surrounding me. It was pretty funny.
Alright, so are you ready to start your adventure,
Yeah.
Madoka?
Freshly cleansed my bowels. On a side note, never eat like an entire package of Twizzlers.
The portal for the holiday boss is out.
No, it's too late. Remember, if you're late, we only end up with like 5 people.
Oh.
And Jamal can't do the holiday until he talks to the cowboy.
Take me to the cowboy then.
Go on the jump pad.
Boing.
Is Barry part of the group?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My name is Sildar.
Find and enter the
Oh,
portal
Sildar,
to
there it
King's
is.
Mouth. Which one is King? Oh, 502, bad gateway. Nice.
Yeah, I got that too.
Yeah, I got that like twice when I made my first and second character.
It's because
Hey buddy, it's me, Barry Blue Jeans.
Barry.
Ugh.
What time is it?
But yeah, never eat a bunch of Twizzlers, cause
Yeah, I'm probably gonna do Evolve tomorrow, I'm guessing.
I don't.
Yeah,
know.
basically.
I tried to install it overnight, but apparently my computer crashed. So. And when I came on, I tried to install it overnight, but apparently my computer crashed overnight. But yeah, eating a bunch of Twizzlers makes your shit hard as a rock, and it hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, and it also makes it red.
Bright red. It came out like Twizzlers.
Faction rank increase. Congratulations.
Should I take these quests again? Why not?
If you can. They go on cooldown.
Yeah, I know.
But if they're not on cooldown, I'd pick them back up. The rewards give you currency, which you can use to buy like those special dances and stuff.
Don't leave me behind. I'm the camera guy.
You're the magical girl.
I'm so powerful.
I am the one.
Don't worry, kid. You haven't gone back in time. I just haven't.
I'm already done with that quest.
I completed the mission by doing nothing.
Welcome right here.
Yo.
Mesquite beans, Texas style. Good.
I'm gonna jump on this car to trigger the alarm. Left 4 Dead.
Name's Boone. I'm a troubleshooter.
I'm a
You
troubleshooter.
and I need to
I'm
have
your
a
IT
powwow
guy.
before you go shooting for trouble. Illuminati may have legacy on Solomon Island, but you folks gave that up for the high life and the low road.
It's up ahead.
Sure, you can be divided in purpose.
Yeah, and then.
We gotta stand united against darkness.
What y'all doing?
Cutscene.
This ain't my first rodeo. I know we're gonna need all the unity we can get. Don't mean to say you stepped into hell, but when the wind blows west, you can just about smell.
It's on the ground there and gotta hit F to.
Were you just doing something to me? Like
All
an
we
ability
know
or
is
something?
death and fog.
Or was
What
that
do you
part
mean?
of the cutscene?
Or someone brought it back.
Yeah.
with them.
Oh wait, I forgot. We have to lure zombies
Stop
into
applying
it.
fart particles to me.
Someone's still being around.
Stop applying
go.
particles to me.
You have to like let them chase you and let them on
Ruining my
fire.
immersion.
Follow that main road and the sound of gunfire.
There we go.
Sheriff's office. Kid, whatever your reasons for being here, you find out what those people died for. And you
I just see something jumping around in the background of the cutscene. I saw your bike, but not you.
Yeah, there it is.
Accept the mission.
You know what's fun, Grimhood?
What?
Because I made a new character, I don't have that bike anymore, and there's no way for me to get it because it's still doing the ticking thing on the daily rewards.
No, you can get it. Check your sprints.
I didn't have it last time I checked.
Well, I'm...
Did you grab a box of ammo?
Yep.
Yeah, Ghost Rider. It's not here.
Now let's go to the...
Did you accept that one guy's quest, like mission? The cowboy?
I'm watching the cutscene right now.
stopping you from culling the herd as you go. Hell,
Gotta take it to the... Yeah, we're already at the station.
I'll buy you
Wait for me.
beer at the
Stop putting farticles on me.
Go on, kid. Saddle up.
And me and Rick are already at the police station.
Rick and I.
Don't speed on it. This is me. I'm a cameraman.
Alright.
It's okay, Jamal. We're still
I'm
sitting
coming
back
back.
here with you.
I apparently missed something.
I have to hold my hand through it.
Oh, I'll hold your fucking hand. Come here.
Kill
My name's
zombies
Barry
in the area
Blue
around
Jeans.
Jack's thing.
You ever wonder why Barry Blue Jeans jeans are so crusty?
So here's the lore. We have Barry Blue Jeans and I'm his waifu body pillow.
Oh.
Body pillow.
Barry.
Let me look at that skirt.
Jeans.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Gross.
So where's the zombies? Oh, there they are.
Alright, there. Go kill some shit.
They're all gonna die. Jump on cars to trigger alarms.
Right over here, Jamal.
Oh, I can't do it on this car.
It's like
Yeah, they have
Left Dead.
little red,
The red
blinky
car.
things on them.
Oh, it's the red cars. My bad.
Well, the
Left
ones that
4 Dead.
have blinky lights on them. Here.
Yeah, there's blinking lights on the dash.
This really is. We did it. Oh, there's a honeycomb.
I'm gonna head on out.
You done?
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to the game yet.
I mean, it took forever to set this up.
I'm sorry.
It did. Someone who is supposed to have tested this game.
I did test it.
You didn't test it thoroughly.
I didn't do the tutorial. I told you I wasn't doing the tutorial.
I'm just doing a couple of dailies. You guys don't need to worry about me.
Alright. In this circle, Jamal.
What does glance mean?
It means like it missed.
Oh, okay. That's. Well, I can't just say missed.
Well, it just does. It doesn't mean that it missed. It means that it just did a lot less damage because you didn't hit it head on.
Don't destroy them.
I'll destroy
Yeah, don't kill them.
Ah!
Whee!
You gotta set them on fire.
Examine the half-eaten corpses. Examine the half-eaten McNuggets meal.
We got a nice, delicious corpse for you, Jamal.
For me to snack one.
Madoka needs tongues.
Oh, I need a tom. Oh.
Now that's the beauty, preemptive tum eating. That way, even if the food is gonna give you acid reflux.
Kill the corpse.
Are you summoning those two?
Guys, we have to kill the corpse gorger.
Wait, Jamal, did you get ammo from the truck?
There's ammo in the truck?
Yeah. You have to pick it up to take it to the police station.
How do I do the thing?
F is interact.
Do you mean the policeman's corpse? Because I did that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm dumb.
Remember to read things, Jamal.
I'm sorry, I did read the thing, but I didn't press
Hey,
accept.
did thoroughly.
Sorry, I forgot that I have to click accept quest.
Did you pick up the ammo?
Stop. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Now we gotta find Deputy Andy.
He's on top of the police station.
Wait,
Should we call
spoilers,
Noob
man.
Killer back now that Ryuk's gone?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we should.
He's playing Payday now, so. Figure out if you really want to bother him.
But yes, Jamal, I will follow your lead. Think of me as like an NPC party member.
Gotcha. You're my
Think
A
of all of us.
tremendously overpowered one.
No, I'm more like that AI partner that runs into walls for a solid 5 minutes and you are so dead sure is behind you the entire time, but isn't.
Helga?
Yeah.
Helga. What does this do? What is this?
Make sure you're hitting Control R, Jamal.
Yeah, I did. What is this? Blood
It
map.
accepts
that's one
quests.
that I don't even need.
You can use it to upgrade your stuff.
Okay, so that's okay. That's the thing that is a Google Chrome logo. That's a Hearthstone. Gotcha. Every single time I burp, I taste banana peppers.
Make.
What is this? Phone book. Dude, I want to prank call my workplace. Actually, fuck that. Let's order a pizza.
Are you going through the what's on the phone book?
Yeah, dude, I want to order a pizza.
Pizza. I had pizza for dinner.
Hey guys, I have a blue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Oh, cutscene. Okay.
Heck if I know where you folks keep coming from, but anyone who walks through that door alive pretty much gets my amnesty.
The unfortunate thing is I can see myself playing this thing a lot.
I'd ask you to call it quits in return.
I don't need another MMO in my life.
Well done. I'm
Don't need
Sheriff
another-
Bannerman, and this down-home little state of
What
emergency is
MMO
what's
do you
left of
have in
my
your
civilization.
life?
Sure, we
Oh
tried to hold as
jeez.
much of the town
World of Warcraft is the most prominent one.
nostalgia than
RuneScape,
defense
I'll go
plan.
back to every now
I
and
won't
then.
tell you
As
Kingsman
of
was a slice
recent,
of heaven in a snow
Roblox.
globe, but it was ours.
Don't forget about Roblox, everybody.
There was always something running under in this town.
Jeez, what
Maybe
else?
what's spilled out now. If that's how it works, I couldn't say
There's a
hand on
couple
heart we
others
didn't have it
that
coming.
I will play here and
That
there
fog
that I'm too
and the
tired to
things in
remember
it,
right now.
They
Type
didn't pick and
slash
choose when
reset.
they came in. Most folks didn't stand a chance.
Should I actually type slash
Now,
reset?
I can see you're armed. I won't kick up any
Yeah,
fuss.
sure. Go
Stay
ahead when you're
true
out
as
of
you'll need to be.
cutscene.
Just don't go thinking that means you're deputy.
I want to ruin my leg probably.
Hey, did I level
Reset.
up?
Oh. Okay.
Jamal died. Game over. Stream's over.
Game
GG.
over. Yeah.
Iron Man run over.
Fucking put on the AFK screen. This stream's over, guys. See ya.
Madoka Kaname has died.
No, my body pillow. You don't have any panties. What the hell?
So it's like World of Warcraft. You have to run to your corpse.
Oh, great. I love this feature of World of Warcraft.
You're right next to us, though, so.
Your body is closed. Resurrect here. Alt. Yes.
Hey, there you
I
are.
turned into a body pillow.
No, you really don't move. I hate it when they squirm.
Berry blue jeans.
My name's Barry Blue Jeans. Hello.
You gotta talk to the lady.
How's it going, Bozuka? No, that's not Bazookia. Words. I am words.
Hello.
Who returns to us? Warthorn, welcome.
Welcome.
You are free to join us now.
I'm behind, like fucking nothing, no one's business, but I mean, I guess I can try catching up. You guys want to hold on a few minutes?
Dude, you need to run down a street and you're caught up. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I'm not even halfway through the tutorial, but okay.
Oh.
It's okay.
Well,
I'll come back for you. These guys can run off and do something. I'll come help you.
I have never heard it botched so hard. Welcome to me. Can't words.
Can't remember anything.
The Lady Margaret was a traumatic
Completely
experience
useless.
for everyone on board.
Where the fuck are you
Just
guys?
left. Oh, never mind.
Oh, there's... Are you sleeping with some bodies?
I'm providing a service.
Oh shit.
Don't
I'll
judge me.
Join you.
Hey, I'll race
I'll
you.
do some cartwheels.
Let's go. I'm racing you.
Oh, me? Sure. Where are we going?
We're going over here. I'm racing you. I'm faster.
How can you race me if I don't know where we're going?
I'm faster.
So,
I'm winning.
how hard is it to change class?
So,
I guess
who did you
Super
accept?
easy.
Just put different.
The mission. Oh, I gotta talk
Yeah,
about
you just pick different weapons essentially.
Yeah.
There we go.
Pick
You
horror
don't,
show.
you don't have to find them or anything?
No.
Okay, good.
Well, I mean,
Good.
yeah, you have to get the weapon.
To put the town under martial law, No, the good old boys on the console were all about thrifty spending, at least above the table. So I squirreled away where I could for some surveillance equipment. Police business, sure, let's call it civic awareness. I'm talking your webcams, your motion sensors. Oh, don't look so surprised. Kingsmouth might be out in the sticks, but we have electricity and everything. Running water in tourist season. Come back when this whole damn mess is blown over, I'll give you the tour far as the old lighthouse. But, to get to the point of it. Seems to me we should bring that gear out of mothballs and get it hooked up around town. Gives me some early warning and the others a break from my collection of Jeopardy reruns.
Yeah, cutscenes. Check a phone book for
Yeah, stuff drops pretty regularly though.
You know, actually,
Warthorn,
now that
so
we're all together, while Noob's waiting to get back, I'll be right back really quick because I'm actually gonna go. Get
Also,
some
you
Tums.
can speed run the tutorial so quick.
I've been kind of doing it, yeah. I'm level 2 right now.
We're
I'm at ground
new as
0
fuck. At least
flashback
I'm
currently,
new as
so.
fuck. Our friend Grimhood or Klepta here.
I mean, I'm at ground 0 flashback. I don't know what that means, but
Oh, you've got a little bit then. Anyways, I'm gonna be right back real quick. I'm gonna go get some Tums because my stomach hurts.
Alright.
Belly
What are you,
hurts.
Terry?
Yeah, basically, I've been
I
trying
ate an
to
entire
set...
thing of Twizzlers today, and I'm kind of having the repercussions of it now.
Oof.
Twizzlers was basically my breakfast and my lunch, and then I suffered it all with one of those Walmart take and bake pizzas. So, yeah.
Wow, are you trying to kill yourself?
Bazookia says you're quiet, Dream.
It's like, hey, I want my body to hate
Hard to tell what
me.
you're saying. Hold on, I'll crank myself up.
Oh,
Anyways,
dear
I'll
lord, just do it
be-
in stream, please.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Anyways,
This
I'll be back.
quest is like way over my level. I need to go find something else. Holy shit.
You have
No, it's alright. I would rather not.
No, it's like me and Grim are way over leveled for this whole zone. We don't mind
Hopefully
helping.
this isn't too loud.
Should've
but
made- you
I
should've
just
made your
bumped
character
up
back.
like another
Where are you at?
50%, so.
I'm not gonna get rid of...
Tell me what to kill, Barry. Tell me what to kill.
I don't know. I think I need to find some graves over here.
Hey, he's grave
My
robbing.
name's Barry Blue Jeans.
Alright, Barry. I'll protect you.
It's over here. I need to look at some
Who's
graves and find Eric and Mindy.
No zombies will harm me
You
while
mean
I'm
Billy
with
and
you.
Mandy?
No, Eric and Mindy, you stupid
Okay.
fuck.
I'm gonna kill myself, I
You
guess.
dumb cunt.
Oh, okay.
Oh, don't be mean.
I'm gonna kill myself. That's it. That's
Are
it.
you
No, that's
playing
it.
a
Then
girl?
Tip is
Are you
fine.
gonna be my other body pillow?
I mean, probably, yeah. Join grip, sure. why not?
Dolores Creed, Tender Mother. Okay.
Now I was like halfway through this fucking cutscene thing and not to go through this entire goddamn thing again.
Just skip it.
I can't. She's being eaten alive. And this guy comes to the thing, and then I hit him in the head, and then.
Ooh,
Oh,
I'm
hey,
about to level up.
Melody.
Where is this
Melee
grave?
seems to be a lot more fun than ranged.
I would, if you're looking for something neato, personally, the chaos thing is really sweet. Like, there's some really cool animations that happen with the chaos.
Oh, yeah. See, I think it's just the whole. I think I'm having a SWTOR thing where a shotgun should be doing a lot more damage, but it's not, so it's pissing me off.
Yeah, the command rifle or the commando rifle, whatever. You don't. It's not like a long range weapon like you'd think it would be. You shoot in like a cone in front of you.
Yeah, same with the shotgun.
It's strongu. It is strongu. I didn't like it, but I switched over to magic and I'm really liking it a lot. Alfie Dimmer. Yeah. Oh, hey, look, there's a boss guy over here.
Yeah, there's a rare spawn. You want to kill the rare spawn?
Yes, I want to kill the rare spawn. Of course I want to kill the rare spawn.
Don't stand in the goo.
Hey, he's dead. What do you got for me, big boy? A faded medallion. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't remember which grave was the
There
right
are all
one to
these
click on.
people. All these
Yeah,
people
there's
are
a lot
here.
of them.
I don't know any of you.
Joseph Blythe, known by some as Resurrection Joe. Okay. Oh, hey, I leveled up.
Hey. Yeah, I remember the graveyard being difficult to navigate by yourself at lower levels, so...
Well, I've done... Hey, I found him. I've done all the quests up till this point by myself, but then I got to this one and I'm a little under leveled for it.
It happens.
Return the severed hands to its grave.
Alright, Warthorn, let us know when you're in Kingsmouth and I'll come help you. What level are you?
2.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Those are you. I mean, you have MMO experience, so you'd probably be fine. But
dual pistols of destruction.
Can I just? I wish I can get more abilities for fucking shotgun for him for come on, really?
Yeah, if you push N,
well,
do you see in the top?
Yeah, it's telling me how to do that now. I think, but can I change? Okay, what's this? Forge fire unlock. I don't have enough SP.
Yeah, you get that from quests and stuff. So just over time, you'd unlock more and more stuff.
Okay, pace. See through the next platform gate. Okay, cool. I mean, melee feels like a mixture of.
All right. Hopefully, I am done blasting Twizzlers out of my ass.
You already have a worshipper.
I know.
Spoiler alert: you don't.
Worshippers.
You're not going to. Going to be shitting forever.
Oh,
I can do it.
Mr. Bones Wild Ride.
Oh, hey, it's the Hulk.
But yes, we've been learning a lot of new things about the...
Also, side note, I might die. Because, might have just taken some Tums that expired in 2015.
Nah,
my God!
It's just chalk. He'll live.
It's just chalk. He'll live.
We can only hope that Terry is wrong and everyone else is right.
He wants. It's like he wants to die.
I mean,
I didn't realize until after I used them. I
can't. The sewers.
Yeah, there's a dog. I like dogs.
I'm gonna get my blue jeans all gross.
If you like dogs, you'll love...
Implying that they're not already.
How do I use my SP and all that again? I forgot.
N.
Oh, I got 17 of those.
Yes.
Also, I hope I got my microphone sounding better in the stream. I basically
just need 1 point and I can buy the next thing. Ooh, I can buy this. Yeah.
Still louder than you by quite a bit. Let me fix that. I've been having a lot of issues with my mic recently, and I don't know what it is.
You call him a streamer, but...
A guy who has hands in recording software is probably something more close to home.
Yeah.
I'm just the guy who invested way too much time into something I'm bad at. That's literally
Remember,
the best
Jamal,
way to
good
describe
thing you
it.
didn't buy Destiny 2 or else you'd lose your account.
Yeah.
Alright, Terry, I'm gonna take off.
No, you're good. Danke for the help.
Yeah, for those who don't know, if you stream with OBS or something in Destiny 2, you get banned.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, one of my console friends tried to reason for me, telling me that having an FPS counter shouldn't be allowed.
What? Why?
Yeah, because it's an overlay. And then he's like, well, they're just trying to keep people from cheating. And he's like, I'm like,
How
okay,
do you
it's
cheat with an FPS counter. What the fuck?
Well, it's and I'm like, it's because they don't want any overlay cheats, which I agree with him on that. He's like, well, it's just a precautionary method to make sure nobody cheats. And I look at him and go, okay. So I want you to imagine talking to every single customer that comes to the store and telling them they can't wear their hoodie because they might steal something.
I mean, that's what my boss thinks all the time, actually.
And he goes, well, I guess you're kind of right on that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm right, because that's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, I'm right, you dumb bitch. You stupid bitch.
I basically said that to him. Man, I'm just killing, basically, Calamity again in here.
Yeah,
and
you're
he's dead.
fighting Ganon.
Right-click the group window, have something to the effect of convert to raid.
Oh no, everyone got separated from me, I think. Oh no.
You're on your own, pal.
Heads up, by the way. Oh, is everyone here dying? Cool. Well, I'm gonna run out away. You guys later fun. No,
Are you in Kingsmouth?
what was I gonna say? No,
I feel like if you turn into a raid, you guys might not be able to quest if you're gonna follow the exact same rules as WoW, which is possible. Oh look, apparently I'm in space now, so that's pretty.
So yeah, these two, your fans, I guess your people who are attempting to teach you the game.
I think it's I think people are called viewers.
What
does
are
that
those?
mean they're technically part
the
of our
individuals
cult now?
whose attention you leech off of.
All things are accurate. Only one thing is true.
Can we can still do quests in a raid group, right?
I have no idea.
Google it. Oh, look at that. Hey, Doc Brown, what's up? I mean, Rick. Hey, Rick. What's up? Pickle Rick. Yeah. See you later, buddy.
Alright, Warthorn, where you at?
I just got out of the... I don't know.
What the...
Are you in Agartha?
Dude, there's an in-game web browser?
So, I'm starting to think it's just me.
I'm
in the Illuminati HQ.
Puzzles get so ridiculous sometimes that you need an in-game browser.
Okay, you're almost... If he's at the Illuminati headquarters, that means I can go find him, right?
So?
Well, he's got to do the rest of the tutorial first. He's almost done.
So
wow, this raid window is so horrible.
I can't load up my own Twitch stream inside the in-game web browser.
The push Alt to get the mouse free flowing.
Yo, fucking squirrel.
And then click on the little arrow, hide raid.
I'm gonna hide the whole thing.
I think you just earned the right of largest host for me. Too bad they're all gonna run away in terror.
What happened?
I just got hosted for 14 viewers.
Damn, that's more views than you ever had.
Yeah.
How many views do you have now then?
I don't know. I try not to look as much.
I
can't wait to see the
he's
viewer
lying.
count
He looks...
drop. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. I mean, right now I'm trying to look at my own stream in the in-game web browser, but that doesn't work.
What's happening is actually happening. I was afraid the user could popular from this game.
I'm gonna be an MMO streamer for the rest of my life.
Okay, so oh god.
It's like when you played
remember when I came here and we sat down at Permanis and I said, I'm gonna be here forever, and you had that look in your face? That's what I have right now.
Whenever Noob first moved, we went out to go get food. Noob goes, I'm gonna be here forever now. And he said I just zoned out, and in my head I was thinking, forever now. Forever now. Forever now.
Like, I'm gonna be honest, he was sitting there for a solid like 20 seconds just staring.
I mean, like the same night that you first got here, we had that bonfire.
Okay, Terry, I'm not in the mood
to see me drunk more, because that's the only way I can.
And look at that, you become an alcoholic now. A chain smoking
I'm just
alcoholic.
drinking Pepsi right now. Fuck off, man.
Jamal, how much you expect it?
Pepsi alcoholic.
I'm vaping straight Pepsi.
So, I don't think so. I will say this: I don't think we're at
phone.
the level that we can just get all the bounty zones, because Jamal needs to experience the actual story in game.
Hi, I still don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm actually enjoying this. I'm not an MMO kind of guy, but this is actually kind of fun.
My bird!
Bird?
I will fuck you up, you hatchling.
Oh. Do you gotta say that the game is running a lot worse than before I took my dump. How do I get this to work?
Oh, and then where's my goddamn text? I got text.
You got a text?
No, apparently in the game. I could go and I got read my text and I go open this box.
Yeah, I heard somebody's phone go off and he's like, "Oh, I got a text."
Yeah, that was my phone. I was about to say that you didn't get the text. That was me.
Oh wait, I can change. I have a whole bunch of weapons now. I can just change now.
Yeah.
Well, you have to spec into them.
Wait, I'm in the training ground, so I don't know if that.
Oh, you got a
have
bunch
to
of
right now.
shit. Those are to upgrade your whatever.
Yeah.
So hit
Upgrade.
Y.
I guess we'll just
And it'll
continue
bring up
doing the
the
quest I have to do, Grim.
Yeah.
Oh,
can I not upgrade my shotgun? Can I pick something else?
Oh, good, dude. I can subscribe for just $12.99.
You have to spec into it.
Holy shit, the game is lagging uncontrollably for me now. Is there something open in the background?
How do I trade in? Do I have to go in that head and then
Oh,
put
I have
things
my
into
own
it?
stream open. I guess I'll close out of that.
Where's my hammer? I had a hammer. Where'd it go?
How do I get... Okay, there we go. Why is the game running
Did you-
all poop? Did I shit
Did you use the hammer as fodder to upgrade the other thing?
Dude,
No.
this person's got like leaf footprints. That's fucking sweet.
Okay,
Alright,
so see
whatever,
how this
I'll
works.
just
So I
fucking
don't have a
heal.
hammer anymore.
Hope the viewers.
Following
can
your
be...
lead, Madoka.
Oh,
Still here.
following is still here. Do you ever get that taste in your mouth right before you go into battle?
What?
That's one of the other things that she says. Haven't you ever played Skyrim?
No.
Oh.
I throw a shotgun in there, and then I assemble. Okay, so I throw these in there. I guess. Cool. I guess. I want to, not use my shotgun. Can I just not?
Community contest. Do everything in our power to destroy Masta.
Symbol. Cool. I upgraded the shotgun. I'm not gonna use, but it's pretty cool.
Down with me.
I wish there was world PvP in this game. I'd be fucking them up right now.
There's faction. No, there's not faction.
Here's my hammer. Okay, now I get
Somebody
the more
said
things.
earlier that PvP might be a thing next year. Also, oh my god, what happened to the frame rate?
No, Jamal, I want world PvP. I want to kill you.
Oh.
Oh.
I want to
Next
gank
year.
you.
Oh shit, okay, there's enemies, I forgot.
Okay. Cool, upgrade my hammer. Okay, it's pretty cool.
I feel way
Exorcism.
over leveled.
You a little bit are, but what is with the frame rate? Oh. What do I do?
Can I just... you know this game more than I do. Is there a way I can just change from using my shotgun as a main weapon to my hammer?
Yeah, put your hammer as your primary and your
But
shotgun.
I still...
How do I get
left
the
click still
camera? How do I
shoots
get
and
up
right
there?
click doesn't. It does melee.
Oh.
And on top of that, I don't have any spells for it. Do I have to fucking know that?
You have to purchase spells for that, yeah.
Where's this
I
WoW?
don't think the game's supposed to be running this bad. Am I doing something wrong?
Maybe? Hey look, it's a big boy.
Oh, hey, big boy.
Have fun!
No, don't you fucking do that to me.
Have fun!
Not now.
With this something surreal about playing an MMO and just seeing the phrase entering New York.
I told you, it's the Division.
Hey,
We should replay that again. It's actually a good game.
Oh, never mind. It's not letting me buy my capstone ability.
Do you have 40?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Oh, have you bought everything?
No, oh. I have to buy, well, from all three?
You have to buy everything. Buy it all.
Oh.
It's a mastery of... That's literally the mastery capstone.
Okay. I thought I just had to fill out one route. That's why I was only buying
gotta-
stuff in
I
that
gotta
one.
do the thing.
I have so many chat windows now.
I really have to do something about my frame rate. It's driving me nuts.
I didn't even realize
Turn off your
Sanctuary
TV.
Yeah, I guess I probably should. Hold up.
Jamal, go dumpster diving with
Hold on, I'm turning off one of my monitors because I have 5 and I really need 4.
No.
Boink.
You don't need more than one.
Well, whenever you stream, you have to be multitasking at all times. I need to see everything.
Jamal. Jamal.
I don't think that even helped it, actually.
Come on, Bane, come down.
Seriously, it feels like the frame rate just died whenever I went to go take a nap earlier.
Follow the corridor. Have you never played an MMO? That's how it kind of works.
I mean, I remember the reason why I didn't like WoW that much is because when I tried playing it before, my computer
did you get the
1
camera?
gig of RAM. Yeah, I got a camera. We're
Alright,
gonna
let's
do
go get the other
IRL
one.
streams now.
I just discovered the warehouse. Does that mean anything to you guys? Hey, another thing.
The game was running so smoothly earlier. What happened?
Jamal, you want to feel something that hits a little too close to home?
Yeah.
There's a diner over here.
Wait, what does that have to do with
You live in a small town in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if there's... The closest diner-like thing we have is a Denny's. Does that really count?
What?
You wouldn't happen to remember the code to put in for this keypad over by the church, would you?
It's in the church.
Oh, okay.
There's like music things up on the wall or pillar. It's the top number.
Oh.
These are fucking everywhere.
Fucking weird.
That's what they do in a church when they sing different songs, and you know which page of the hymn book it is in. But yeah, they said the song was the first song we were planning on singing, so that's at the top of the page.
What's the button to...
Yeah, I guess I haven't been to fucking
haven't been to church
since I was like
I'm
12.
trying so hard to remember all of these new things. I don't know what I'm doing.
What are you doing?
I'm trying to move things out of the way of other things. I don't know how to work the UI. I don't know what I am doing. I want to move the group list thing out of the way of the main map.
I don't know.
How do I do
Yeah, I'm in World 3, like main
that,
area. Your place.
You are?
Like I
Do you
even went into
see-
the UI thing and it still wouldn't let me move it.
I see you.
Can I move the camera? Or okay, fuck it. I'll just Counter-Strike style.
The
Let's do this.
camera.
Just
I'm
hide raid.
moving the map.
Hide raid.
How do I do that?
There's a
Oh.
little down arrow in the
All
top
right, whatever.
left corner.
Whatever. The map's in a Counter-Strike position now, so it doesn't
come
matter.
to me. There should be a green arrow on the map.
Also,
Let's
I
get
really
the
want the game to run better, but it won't. I might have to restart the game, actually. Unless it'll just make it worse. I don't know. I don't know how MMOs work.
Have you turned anything down?
Yeah, everything's
Alright,
on
so
lowest.
we're all
The game
in
looks like the herbs again.
Kingsmouth. X is like your sprint or mount up button.
Yeah.
And we're all over this way.
Okay.
Why do you look like Father from Fullmetal Alchemist, but not as buff?
Not as buff.
Don't know. It's just one of my OCs.
I know, but I just make a joke. You get what I'm saying.
Well, at least the frame rate's good
Hey,
inside this
Honeycomb.
building. Too bad it won't stay.
So, yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah, grab any honeycomb you see, because those always give XP and
If you
their
collect-
lore.
I
There's a
have
way
not
to.
met. I have not met the requirements to travel here.
If you collect 6, you get an extra
What?
piece of health.
Yep.
He
I
can't go
can
to
see-
Kingsmouth.
I have to
Why
wait
is that?
until I have to investigate the Great Tree apparently.
Yeah, you have to
Oh,
do
yeah.
a couple things before you can use
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
know where to go. though.
go do that and then come here.
I love us just
To that
climbing
portal.
inside of each other's assholes. Oh, this frame rate. Does anybody else have bad frames, or is it just me?
And then
it. Only when I'm in the Great Tree area.
I'm in a zone, I guess.
The
Just
Great
so
Tree
you know,
is
this the
basically,
one
you
that
know, the
name's changing.
Orgrimmar Stormwind.
I'd say Dalaran. Dalaran
Yeah,
was
Dalaran.
bad. Fuck.
There you go. It's a better description.
Yeah, it is better.
Jamal!
Hello.
What is this
We go into
currency
the
up
door
here?
now. Oh shit.
What are these shards used for?
Let's see here.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to my frame rate.
So there's anima shards are used for like upgrading weapons, and like if you die, you have to pay like anima shards to revive.
Oh, that kind of.
Like it's telling me it's
Yeah.
going at 24 FPS. That's not Gucci.
But like that's if you like can't find your way back to your corpse.
That's
you use anima shards to just respawn at the graveyard.
Let's go, Madoka.
See, in here it seems to be going good. Oh, there's a cutscene.
I think you should go away.
Okay, so how do I get marks of favor?
Dailies.
Yeah, dailies. Yeah, the marks of favor are for like upgrading like your sprint so you run faster, or
Yeah, that's what I'm going to
cosmetic stuff. And then Aurum, is basically the real money currency, but you can get those through the currency exchange with marks of favor. So as long as you just do a bunch of dailies, you in theory can get any cosmetic. It just might take weeks or months.
You died!
Okay. That happens.
Oh my god!
I was about to say, oh shit, I'm spotted by a camera or some shit. Nope.
Well, if you want a better in-depth explanation by a veteran, the chat's full of them.
How do I... What
I like how I just land on this pin pad and it opens up a window with a bad gateway error.
Yeah, it happens to everybody. I don't
We
know
got
what
that
that
too.
It's amazing. It's quality.
What do we do here? Oh, okay, I see. I think.
This is your puzzle, Jamal.
Well, I'm gonna die again anyways, so see ya.
You might use your.
I took you down with me!
Fucker.
My bad. Oh, there's a thing here.
Yeah, you gotta look around.
Sorry,
God.
whenever I move the mouse, it makes the frame rate drop to 11. Should probably figure out what's causing that. Oh, I just walked in a circle.
Oh, load up.
Oh, look at you standing next to the big red thing that tells me where I'm supposed to go.
Yeah, fuck
How do I get more?
Yeah,
how do
I
I get
get
more
it,
SP?
I'm dumb.
What's that worth on?
I just load up. But I didn't get any more SP.
I feel like I should be playing the Mission Impossible theme in the background of this.
Oh, are you kidding me? You can buy skill points? Ugh.
You can buy in-game currency through my stream, and
To
I
be
get a
fair,
cut of
there's
it.
like no limit to
Please
how
don't-
many skill
please
points
don't do
you
that,
can
by the way.
I know, that's really scummy. That's why I'm kind of upset about that.
I like this segment in Breath
Well,
of
it's
the
mostly.
Wild.
I feel like it's mostly for making just different builds.
Oh no.
Oh, I'm gonna start buying some currency. Okay.
What? That was just you, and it took me down too.
Oh, if you're talking raid chat, we don't have our chat set up at all. So if you're saying something, we can't see it.
Yeah. This
gonna
honestly
see if I
just
can get
started
over
off
here.
with just us playing. I didn't expect us to actually have viewers that wanted to join in.
Yeah, we honestly didn't
So-
expect people to watch.
Even though we're in a raid, we can still do quests, right? That doesn't follow
Yeah,
WoW rules.
Grim, before
Yeah,
we
I'm even
continue,
in
I can't
the
take
same
this frame
solo
rate anymore.
instance
I
as
need to
Jamal.
figure this out real quick. What?
I got past the camera.
Well, hold on. I'm
Yeah,
attempting
I'm
to
waiting for you,
fix-
Warthorn. So once you come through the portal, I'm just
Oh
sitting here for you.
yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, fuck it. Let's put it to
almost
ultra
there.
and see what happens.
Take your time.
Watch my computer explode. It feels like it's running better. Turn that shit off. No motion blur. Turn that off. Let's turn the brightness all the way up.
It's not pay to win. It's only there because you can max everything. All right.
I mean,
Alright, it feels like it's going better.
Jamal.
Oh no. Hold on, I'm running outside. I'm running outside. I tried, damn it. Okay.
Did he die
Benny.
again?
Yeah,
Look up.
he's been killing me.
That's what happens whenever you're my follower.
Benny, look up. Actually, look up.
What? Where are you? How did you get up
Can't
there?
use that ladder.
Okay.
Grim, we got this. We got
Well,
this.
Okay.
the little dude at the campsite down here has got your first quest.
Is there a fallen name? Just give us find out.
No.
No.
Oh, you good? 'Cause I don't know if you noticed. I climbed. I've been I climbed to the top of the fucking like starting area.
He got on
Yeah,
top of the
oh,
mountain.
I
Rage
got the cutscene. Hey, it's McCree.
I like
Oh,
his
Scoopy
name.
with McCree.
There's a cutscene stuff too. Let me know when you're done.
Have fun, Jamal.
The worst follower ever. You know I'm at a
I'm an
handicap.
NPC. Also, Melody says you must learn line of sight.
Yeah, I figured that out now, I think.
Let's go, Maduka.
Coming, bitch.
I don't remember Hamor was saying that.
Let's go.
Coming,
Alrighty.
bitch.
So I've already done these, so let me know what you need to happen.
Remember, hold X makes you sprint.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Not hold. You don't have to hold it. You just tap it. Summons.
Toggleable. Alright, please don't lag when I go back out into the town. Please don't lag when I go back out into the town. Please don't lag when I go back out. I don't want lag. I have
Lag
viewers
for
to
days.
impress. I need to show them my cool computer setup.
Hey, it only took us 3 tries, but we did it. We beat the first little instance.
Where's I'm seeing any goodies around here. So.
We've only been live for about
So
2.5
do you not
hours.
loot bodies or anything like that?
No, basically rare spawns and like boss mobs and stuff have loot. So yeah, common stuff doesn't have loot. Also, I'm kind of out leveled the areas.
But I can't tell if I'm getting experience.
Oh, there goes
for these.
the
I mean, I'm
frame
getting
rate.
like 32. I don't know if 32. Or no, I'm getting 8 now. Haha.
Alright.
Hey, if I
The
restart
quest
the
objectives
game
are on
really
the street,
quick,
by the
will
way.
that cause any
Yeah,
issues?
no, so I'm just kind
You mind
Quick,
if I
everyone.
do that really quick?
Lag him. Make particle effects.
No, don't give me particles. No. You're making the frame rate die.
Where
So-
are
I'll
these
restart this game
Illuminati
Are you on?
wars?
Are you on the one to
Mind the what? The
of. I
what?
got.
to let them on fire?
I had to
Well,
grab
well,
around from the pickup. So.
Yeah. So you have to.
Oh, you're
Okay.
okay.
Oh. I'm talking to Noon.
Sorry.
So one of the quests is you have to light some zombies on fire. You have to make these gas cans blow up and then lure zombies into them.
Okay.
Careful, it will blow up and it'll hurt you. So I'll jump on this and summon some zombies for you.
Alright. Just give it one moment.
Did that count?
Start the launcher.
I don't know. I don't think I had the quest yet. I don't think.
All right.
Right now I'm doing bullets for Andy.
Jesus Christ!
And then you've already done it, I guess.
I feel like I should empty out that thing at some point. There's just a pile of all kinds of shit thanks to you guys. I do like the idea of just piling it up behind me.
Did you pick up the bullets?
Yes.
Okay. That was something I didn't realize. You had to go actually pick up the item. Andy's on the roof.
I've never
attacked this
live
terminal. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not inside the building. Yeah, he's
sorry,
up on top.
I saw the thing. Hey, gotta.
You're fine. And you can talk to any person to find out lore, and then like they'll keep saying stuff until they have a check mark next to their thing.
I apparently do shit healing to higher levels.
Yeah, most things work.
I can't heal them.
You probably do all kinds of healing to me. Oh,
Oh,
my
yeah.
god, the frame rate, it's great. Oh my god.
What did you do?
I restarted the game.
Oh.
I also put it in the completely full screen because apparently it was running in windowed. Never noticed.
Second, can I do that? Is that
Look,
what
it's like I'm playing on a whole nother computer. Look at this, I can
it is in Windows, holy shit.
I can cartwheel in glorious 70 FPS. Look at that. Oh wait, I don't have panties on.
Yeah, you do.
No, my skirt just doesn't have anything underneath of it.
Yeah, that's your panties, stupid.
It's just a void.
You have void panties on.
See, look at that. All these particle effects, all these
Man,
particles.
actually,
and I'm not
you get more FPS if you use
Let's continue the video game.
What's
oh,
up, man?
dude, it's like I'm experiencing something brand new. It was like I was playing DayZ.
Where did you go, Noob?
Where did you go?
What? Me?
Noob.
Cotton Eye Noob.
Up here. Set the mission for pistols on me.
Oh, I was trying to be his bodyguard, but he just ran off without me.
I'm up here. I was up there.
What the fuck is this? What is a hatchling? It is disgusting. It's horrible.
Don't say that about their pet.
Ew.
You have a shit pet. Shit pet.
It's so gross. I don't like it.
Look at you with your 5 miles an hour motorcycle.
You have it too.
Sons of Anarchy. I do.
Yeah, click Alt.
Look at this thing.
Click the menu in the top left and go to login rewards.
Alt.
It's so nasty. It's so fucking
Kinda cute.
Claim reward. How do I use it?
Go to press I or press like Control P or Shift P. I mean.
Oh, I forgot we had like more people in the party. I was like,
God,
hey.
this is phenomenal. This is just what the hell.
Hey, it's Noob. We found
How
him.
do I do it? How do I do the thing?
Meme woman. You make it your sprint. Click on the motorcycle in the sprint section and set a sprint.
Hey, I leveled up.
Set sprint. Oh, so now whenever I hit, okay, nice. That's neat.
Yeah.
Fucking, we're Sons of Anarchy now. Riding through
Alright,
this
Noob.
world.
What quest do you want to do?
All alone.
I don't know. I don't know, we doing things?
Yeah.
I'm just.
Kind of why I was hoping that you're all together, because I mean, I feel like it's kind of not as good to have people who are really high level.
I'm not even really participating. I'm just healing.
Yeah, Grim's basically just a
Yeah.
follower.
Yeah, it's basically we're
Oh,
just
that was
helping keep
better. I
people
like that little-
alive.
I like the little ghost.
I have a heal now too. If I can keep you alive.
Wrap through this world. All alone.
So what do you got to do?
Nice.
Accept the mission.
And there's a honeycomb
from
over here too.
Jack Boone. What the fuck is Jack Boone?
I think it's.
Oh.
That's Jack Boone is the cowboy man you basically missed at the front.
I talked to him.
He has a mission for you.
He wants you to come back so you can lick his house.
We got it. Oh.
I mean,
Can't
I
have
would.
that kind of lewd conduct on my stream. I will
He wants you to lick his ass. He wants to give you. He wants you. He
Don't
wants you
give
to
him
give him a rim
canalingus.
job.
Canalingus.
Camel?
No, canal. You know, like canals. Also, no.
Oh hey, a Sanguine Kitty, I have that too.
I don't know what any of these things are.
Alright, Jamal,
Yeah, I
let's go
like
to
the
the
little
computer.
blood cat that he's got a lot more than that fucking creature.
Aw, don't be mean.
Are they gonna stop me if I ride the motorcycle into them? Nope. Oh, there they go. Well, hey!
Hack the computer, Jamal.
That's what I'm good at. I'm a good hacker.
Certainly a hack.
Type help for a list of available commands. Help. Entries are not case sensitive. 1. Type root in order to return. Oh wait, okay. 1. Initializing. I did the thing.
You did it. Did you?
Shit, I can't type in my own stream. I did the thing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So either you, I'm trying to decide if I stay over there for a second. I want to see I want to see if I'm actually getting a lot less experience for you being in there. I'm trying to say.
Oh,
I think is normally it's giving me 8. I guess that's weird.
Yeah, I don't think it's any different.
In that case, I'm really surprised you can do that. It's pretty.
I think I'm starting to understand things.
You're starting to understand.
I'm starting to understand MMOs.
You are?
I'm starting to understand that MMOs give me viewers.
I love it.
Yeah, if there's a red blinky light in their dash, that means there's a car alarm.
Hey, Grimhood.
Yeah?
I have a question.
Sure.
Hey, Grimhood.
Yeah?
Is it only zombies?
What, here?
Yeah, I mean, are there like other enemies, or is it only ever going to be zombies?
I think it's just
There are other enemies. It's just Kingsmith, yeah. Kingsmith's being overrun by zombies and Trog.
That's like a fucking gas can.
Complete.
Oh, and
the gas
Golems.
cans are back.
Blues.
Wait,
Okay.
which quest did you pick?
My thing currently says complete the mission Elm Street.
Then you have to lure them. Yeah.
Let's go upstairs. We might be up there.
Gotcha. Wait, there's an upstairs.
Here, have a heal.
Yeah.
Where's the
Follow
upstairs? Oh, okay.
My heal is not very
Sorry,
strong.
I'm so used to seeing the name New Type Grimhood or something.
I know, it's weird when I have an RP character, huh?
Why can't they just have a white fucking shirt?
This guy.
Okay, I guess I gotta do that now. Let's do it.
Jeez, you never saw anything like this in the cop shows. Well, maybe on cable. Not the network ones.
Whose fucking voice is this?
You wouldn't know it from looking out there, but before that wicked bad fog rolled in, Kingsmith was a sleepy little burg. Nothing stronger on the streets than a hot cup of coffee and chocolate-glazed donuts from Susie's. The occasional DUI or domestic disturbance. Human sacrifice. But every town has a dark side, right? We sure are getting a heaped help in the darkness now, eh? The Walking Dead and worse besides taking over our town. Us survivors hold up in here, hoping it's all just a bad dream and we'll wake up to the smell of bacon and maple syrup. But unless someone ups and does something, and soon, all we're gonna wake up to is the smell of rotten flesh. And I don't need another thing to remind me of my dad.
I swear to God, I recognize this guy's voice.
Halloween does bring back the memories, eh?
Whose fucking voice is this guy?
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same speed as your regular sprint. You have to buy the upgrades.
Are you talking about the cowboy?
No, the Deputy Andy guy. He sounds like some character or something that I know.
You probably do. I have a lot of actors.
He sounds like Scout from Team Fortress.
I can't hear that. He definitely sounds like some kind of impersonation to something that I've seen recently.
It's a Brooklyn accent.
Hey, I can get more points, so I guess let's start this at...
Kill the ravenous horde around the sheriff's office.
Why is just having a regular white fucking t-shirt so difficult?
How do you change your...
He's trying to be Barry Blue Jeans.
Change one now?
Barry Blue Jeans has a white t-shirt.
Wait, that's my more. Let me have this.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, okay.
Fucking
158. Keep that number in mind. It's gonna give you a pop quiz later tonight.
Oh wow, this bloody hockey mask. It looks completely original. I have no idea where it's from at all.
Dude, it's literally
that was a
some
joke.
big-
That was a joke. That was a joke.
Alright.
Sorry.
I mean, you can find Jack Skellington's outfit. And the Scream outfit.
Where are there more?
And also Freddy Krueger stuff.
Oh, I have a reward to claim.
Oh, Daily's just reset.
There's one thing that I could never understand about MMOs, and that is, like...
How do I get to...
All of these types of UI elements, they hurt my head.
Oh.
There's way more going on than I'm used to.
Wow, you can get a shitload of fucking...
What did it?
Marks of favor.
Pepsi makes me big.
You gotta defend the place, Jamal.
Defend the
it.
place. Who are we defending against? There's nobody here.
Well, there they come.
Wait, try to stay here and do this with you guys.
It's like Black fucking Friday.
Yeah, actually doing a quest, or is it just alarms coincidence?
We're doing a quest.
Okay. Alarms
No, just kidding. That's the freedom alarm.
I have unclaimed rewards.
Hold control and hit R.
Even I know that. Gosh, noob. This feels like Saints Row to me. Look, I even got a motorcycle.
South Barricade.
I went to the wrong way.
Don't leave the circle.
I wanted to see if there was an invisible wall.
There's not.
I'm beta testing. Beta testing for a 5-year-old game.
What's camera, Andrew?
So, just out of curiosity, is there some sort of a bet going on right now that I get into this game?
No, I made the joke saying this is the game that gets you into MMOs, and that would make me very sad.
Wait, Jamal.
Yeah.
We gotta go down the street, see what's up. What's causing this?
Well then, hop on. Ride bitch. I'll get my
you
sidecar
gotta
out.
I'm not riding bitch.
Better ride bitch, bitch. Batch.
Batch.
Cheap camera from gas station.
That's a motorcycle, I like that.
Look, that means he's the prez.
Alright, noob. You sound like you kind of know what you're doing and stuff. Don't really need my help, so...
It's fine.
Let me know if you get
Hey,
like...
I see meme. Does it say meme woman? What's up, meme woman?
Hey, what's up?
It has a vagina on its stomach, watch out.
It has a vagina on its stomach.
Let me know if you get too overwhelmed or something.
We did it. We defeated the monster.
Like how I
Wait,
walk?
you read the missions, like the mission ending.
What do you mean read the mission ending?
Like when you press Control R, some of them have like interesting little
This
things
is
they write in it.
interesting. We have no records of direct contact.
Where
with
is this camera? I was told
so
to
your
go here and
sighting
get a
in
camera.
Kingsmouth catches us a little off guard. Other factions have encountered them.
Oh, it might be on the roof. Might have to find a ladder.
Fuck ladders, I can just parkour up here.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
But yeah, Kirsten Geary's really funny lady. Her messages always make me laugh.
Oh, it's actual. Great to see you. I'm looking for a fucking like.
Oh.
Just seeing a mean woman run off with a sledgehammer.
I want to put this pumpkin on.
Oh, you mean the jack-o'-lantern pumpkin from the daily rewards?
Yeah, I want to do that. How do I do that?
We have to beat the holiday event for you to open it.
I want to do it.
Do you want? Okay.
Is there anything of value in these roofs? Oh, I just fell off again.
The roof, there's a quest if you accept from the sheriff to get a camera from the roof.
Alright, I'm getting this right now.
Alright, then yeah. Alright, so who wants to do the Halloween event? Is it up?
I will.
I don't know what I'm doing. You were my leader.
We're following you. What are you talking about?
Well, you do everything that I.
The blind leading
You
the
are my
completely
agent.
able to
You decide
see.
what I do.
I love this the blind leading the people who can see completely fine.
If I was your agent, you would have fucking listened to me and tested this game out beforehand.
I did test it out. The launcher.
Yes.
Oh god, Susie's level 9.
I told
Okay.
you I was going to do the tutorial on stream.
I might die here.
That you did.
Nice
That
U-turn
little
there,
cat
Grim.
thing with the hat is amazing. Debonair gin. I love it.
Look out, Grim.
Die,
Oh my god, I found a fucking Wendigo.
Wendigo?
You go.
Flamingo.
Wendigo.
What a bingo.
Killed it.
Alright, so we'll wait for you guys in Agartha. Is the vent up?
Let me finish up this quest real quick and I'll meet you over there.
I just killed I just soloed level 9. Is that common?
Well, actually, if
No,
you
it's-
Jamal, if you want to just keep questing here, I'll let you
Okay,
guys know
yeah.
when it's up.
I still don't know what I'm doing, so
That's fine.
Wow,
I'm
this
just
is
gonna
garbage.
follow the markers until I beat
Benny.
the game.
Hello.
I feel like
Alright,
that's
yeah,
a
I'll let
There's
you
a
guys know
rare
when it's
here.
up.
Is that?
Oh, I don't think it's up. Never mind. Unless you killed it.
Did Susie? Yeah, I just killed her. That's the person. That's the person I just sold it.
Oh, okay.
Pretty
She's
sure
level 8.
fucking deja vu.
So I can show you where the camera is if you want.
Oh yeah, it's over there. I'm just
are you
trying to parkour over rest.
I was trying to get some sick
Yeah,
air.
I
What
was
you're trying to do.
I was thinking up there. See what's up there. He's level 9. I just realized that. Maybe I shouldn't be over here.
Alright, Kron, you say good, less anime. Here's the thing, my character is supposed to be anime.
Yeah.
Less anime, here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
Alright.
He's saying that because I played a dating sim last night.
I mean, you're finishing up the night with that.
I mean, probably if it's
this-
we're playing
this
this
way.
for the rest of the night.
And I was looking to see if there's any. I was seeing if there's any honeycombs in here.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Nope. Looks like we'll have to wait an hour for the event.
They
It just
stop
ended.
coming and they don't stop coming.
Oh, yeah. You'd think these wet bits would just fizzle on the bonfire, but no. They sparkle like kindling wood. That's heartening. Ah, geez, what a mess. Good thing
Why
I'm
do
not
the tits
particular.
just jiggle?
Now I'm used to getting my hands dirty. Fish guts, childbirth, sutures, the dead.
I really want this
Maybe
woman to
I
say
was
gefilte
born
the
for
fish.
this work.
Her accent would make it very funny.
That don't sound right. Nobody's made for this ungodly work. Except maybe this old thing. So I kill and I chop and I burn, but there's more of them every day, and I feel like I'm pushing a very big
3
stone
months.
up a very steep mountain. And it keeps rolling back down.
Thanks for getting rid of the barricade behind me,
Sisyphean?
Kron. Thanks for the 3
Well,
months,
it's
bud.
That when you get
Appreciate
burning
it.
in your privates.
Your privates.
My idea of culture is reruns of Cheers and, you know, not ancient Greek mythology. Well, the old gal ain't a proper match for everything that turns up on my doorstep. Seems she's too much for most of it. Spreads a bone of dead man's guts all over the place. There's no time to gather it all up before we're right back up in the thick of it. And they never stop coming. They never stop coming.
Fed to the rules and I hit the ground running.
And
Didn't make sense not to live for fun.
Ring gets head.
And gets Hey,
So
thanks
much
for
to
hanging
do,
out,
so much
CG
to
Rider.
see, so much to do, so much to see, so
for
much to
hanging out.
do, so much to do.
No.
The fog.
Come see us at Langmore Trail.
Go to the back of her house. Got it.
Can I choose this? I can't.
No.
Fuck
Nope.
you! I can't choose this. Okay, yeah, make it.
And now go, go, go.
Kill the attacking zombies. Come on, now. Come at me, fool.
And then you gotta wait. There you go. Now you go.
What kind of shit camera?
That'd be too easy.
Make too much sense, huh?
Yep.
So Melody, we should be in the same raid group, but our instances are completely different. I only have I decided to just go in for shits and giggles since you were saying we had so many people. There's like 15. That's not a lot. You bamboozled me.
Bambizzled.
I've been Smeckledorfed.
Say even a word, and I'm still angry.
Where's it from?
Alright.
But
So now we're basically done with this. We go back to the station and place all these cameras we collected around the station.
I feel like I should have made my character armor.
I probably have a faster run speed than you.
I have a faster run speed too. Sorry, I just like to feel special sometimes.
What are you talking about? You're special.
You are special, Terry.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No!
You have a cat. That means you're special.
I have 4 cats, 2 ferrets, a guinea pig, a bunny,
a dog,
a lizard, 2 dogs.
An elephant, apparently.
There's an elephant up there somewhere.
A second, I need to put something on my bar.
No problem. Yeah, I'm actually on the same quest, and it's funny because you were collecting the other cameras, and it counted because I was in the party with you.
Oh, dude, we're having a bonfire. Turn the lights out.
I can't see anything. There's so many particle effects in this boss fight.
They're particles.
But yeah, like I said, even though we're in the same raid group, we're not in the same boss instance for some reason.
Actually,
There
kind of
should
like
be
this
like.
game. It's quite fun.
See?
No.
You thought you'd like it.
Well, this plays like how I want an MMO to play like.
Yeah, you mean simple attack bar, simple
attack bar. Fucking, you can use the mouse to click on enemies and shoot them. Like if World of Warcraft played like this, I'd play it.
Okay, I lost a bet. Fuck.
I knew you were gonna bet.
I'm kidding. That was a joke. It was a joke. Don't worry. No, but I don't know. I'm just angry.
He's just angry.
Oh.
Fucking, I swear to God, if you start playing this game, I don't think
I mean, I'll probably play through it for a while.
Yeah, just like have fun. If you get tired of it, drop it off. That's fine.
Also, like how I type /die and it says there's no command or script to die.
/reset.
Yeah, it's /reset.
Yeah, that's the suicide button.
Oh, sweet, really?
Yeah, they got
It's over here.
Is that the treasure reward, or is that just a normal pumpkin head? Not normal, but like wearable. Oh fuck!
Yo, is that a trash bag? Oh.
I'll go ahead and place the last one when it's over here.
I got it.
He's lying to you. He's gonna kill you behind your back.
Alright, you can do it.
Kron and Farkas are back to their Dukes of Hazzard boys. Thanks for the 2571, Kron.
Alright, now you gotta use the computer inside the station.
I can't get their farticles out of my way.
Oh, alright, so it is wearable clothing. So I have a couple pumpkin heads, but they didn't have that nice fancy title you got.
Oh shit, oh, get away from me.
Get away from me.
But yeah, I'll time it now in about 40 minutes or so. Let's all head to the gate.
Oh, health regens in this game, right? Alright, good.
Don't forget to control R to claim your reward.
Yeah, it's got a whole bunch of AP.
Yeah, and I'd recommend reading too stuff, because, I don't know.
Yeah, reading helps.
Makes stuff more interesting.
Is there any point I get non-passive skills in this thing?
Yeah, if you go over the other one.
Why do I think
active skills.
Push N, yeah, active and passive.
I mean, I really
So
can't
active is-
answer that question because I really don't deserve it the first couple times for Kron.
The active is what goes on your bars.
I don't deserve it at all, really. All I am is just a dude playing video games.
10 AP.
All I do is exist and waste space while everyone yells around me.
Thanks for the 250. Damn it, Nessie.
Yeah.
Boy,
Damn
this
it, Bobby.
tree
Giggity. Hey, there
This
you are.
Sanguine Wendigo has a lot of health.
Now what do you want to do?
Oh, I'm just gonna keep doing some quests. Actually, it seems like Terry might need some help. Actually, shit.
Nah, I got it.
Special assignment
Yeah, it's like
received.
I'm just being a.
Yo, for special assignment. I want to do that. How do I do that?
Just is it say local bounty or whatever?
It says defeat undead excavators.
Defeat undead
Hey, I did
excavators.
it.
Where are they?
There's those things excavating that are undead.
I don't see them.
Look harder.
Unless these are just what they're called. I don't know.
Are you skipping cutscenes, noob?
Maybe a little bit, so I can catch up to them all.
Oh, there they are. I found them. Die, motherfucker! Die, motherfucker! Die.
I'm stuck. I can't move.
Yeah, just,
My character is wedged between a dumpster and a car, and I can't move.
I'm sorry.
Sounds like my life, actually.
The dumpster in my car sounds like a electric song.
Pretty sure it might be on a new album or something.
Alright, I'm teleporting. There
Shit,
we
we
go.
got another 250. This time it's a rip. And occasionally it goes bleh. Die, motherfucker, die, motherfucker, die. I did it. I did the thing.
You did it.
Yeah. Cool, I got the same chain over and over again. Yeah. Oh shit, I can claim reward too. Thank you for your contribution and efforts in cleansing this area.
It's a contribution.
Cool. Shut up. I cannot speak words.
Don't speak.
Holy shit! What the fuck happened to this bridge?
That's a good
my
question.
Bed is it fell down. Oh shit! I could do jumps on the bike. Oh, oh, Grim, look at this.
Well,
wee.
You have some Silent Hill shit going on here?
Can I do wheelies?
Off in a dungeon.
6 skills. Throwing the cultist body parts onto the fire, we're just throwing ourselves onto it.
we are the cultists.
The environment is damaging you.
This way, noob.
Are you literally standing in fire?
No, I was doing jumps over it with the bike. It was pretty cool.
Oh, wait, I thought it was driving. Never mind. It's right. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we have to go down the road to find out what was causing the attack.
Hey Grim, you want to go help out them real quick?
I was doing this mission that you were on, but
I mean, they're gonna be like a foot or two away from us.
sure.
Fuck it, they're on their own.
No, I say help.
I mean, the reason why I suggested that is because I'm already aggroed against things, so...
They're gonna die and it's all your fucking fault.
Good.
No.
Light the cultist fires to complete the ritual.
We need to complete the ritual. We need to complete the
Summon the bay.
We need to summon. We need
What?
to summon the cheese
The bay.
pizza. We need to summon cheese pizza. I need to place an
I
order
need
with
to have some
Domino's.
cheese pizza.
But
What?
Cheese pizza
cheese
with...
pizza, we need
We all need some cheese pizza with pepperonis and cheese stuffed crust.
garlic sauce.
What?
With garlic butter sauce on the crust.
Oh, you know whenever you get Papa John's or something and they give you a pepper. A pepper.
We need
a pepper in the
We need to have banana peppers on
You know,
the
this whole
side.
like thing isn't really like special. Whenever the lady tells me to go right over here.
I have a coupon. I have a coupon on a.
I like how
large
it's like, oh yeah, follow the trail of blood, but they ignore the minimap. It won't tell you where to go.
Actually, yeah, we didn't follow the trail of blood. It kept going this way.
My bad. I was just they never start counting apparently.
Yeah, they never stop.
Yeah, I saw you diverted to the camp bonfire.
Defeat the cult leader. Shit, am I gonna show up? Are you the cult leader?
The Jamal.
Yeah, I don't know where you are, Worthman, but the blood trail is this way.
Sorry, I was doing some extra.
Hey,
I don't know why, but this feels like it plays like Ratchet and Clank for me. Like
Ratchet and Clank.
Just the combat, I guess. Like, I don't know. I'm getting a weird Ratchet and Clank vibe from this. I don't know why.
So this is like a, I don't know, I guess a world quest like in WoW.
The cheese pizza.
I would like to order a cheese pizza.
Estimated delivery time is 35 minutes.
That
If
is
it is
far
not
too
there-
long for my cheese pizza. I will be taking my card elsewhere.
Fine, fuck you.
What?
I don't know.
Fuck this shit.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
You have selected Little Caesars Pizza as your selected pizza place.
No.
There's a honeycomb up in the tree if you're looking for it.
I know. I was looking at the thing, guys. Yeah, I'll go up here. I'll go up here though. Where is it?
Somewhere up there.
Yes, yeah.
Ooh, I got a cutscene.
Well now, I'm not much fit for entertaining, but I reckon you ain't much in the mood for hospitality either, am I right? Oh, you're not a big talker, eh? I'm used to that from a surly husband, and kids more comfortable with kicking a ball around than having a conversation with their ma. Name's Nama Creed.
The name's Lois Griffin.
Raised a family up here before this dungeon thick fog came took him, is my story. Helen sent you over to check on me, I reckon. Now, your concern is wicked kind, but I don't need any pitying. I got my shotgun, I got what's left of my wits. I'll manage. Now, this hullabaloo began after the Lady Margaret came back. My husband Larry, the others, we all thought that they'd gone missing out there, but the sea took them. They came back. Whole town could finally breathe again. But then came that fog, like it was following them back to shore. 'Twas right, said they, such birds to slay, that bring the fog and mist. Don't ask me where I got that from. Probably heard it on Oprah. Never got to ask Larry about what happened in those weeks they were gone. Been around gift horses long enough not to look him in the mouth. He was back. Thought life would go on the way life goes on, one day at a time. When the fog lifts enough to see the Lady Margaret laid up in the harbor, covered in that red seaweed, I always wonder if he'd still be here if I had.
Hey.
What's wrong with you people?
What do I miss?
Alright, Jamal, I'll help you with this quest.
Read the quest text. And the
In my defense, you were asking me where I was.
playing Pokemon Yellow and Blue. I grew up playing fucking RuneScape. I don't got time for that shit. I'm dying.
Alright, Jamal.
I'm dying. Slowly, but I'm dying.
He needed to get his cheese pizza.
I needed to get my cheese pizza.
We have to find more information about this murder.
The murder of Lady Margaret.
Like I got the same
Lady
three.
Margaret.
To upgrade my
Like I just get the same 3 fucking necklaces.
You upgrade them, so then you use the one to upgrade the other ones. Are you helping the old lady?
I don't know. I just killing attacking zombies. So I guess. Yeah.
Oh, she has quests to help defend her
Gonna pay
place.
some cheese pizza.
Power of suggestion. I don't know if Jamal's done these quests.
I haven't done much. But what I have done is live. Look at these disease-ridden Hershey Kisses over there.
You are so fucking lucky I'm killing all these things that are aggroing onto you as you pass by.
You're fine. That's what followers are supposed to do, right?
Yeah, I'm not even gonna say anything. I'm gonna let this next thing happen. It wants to impale you, Jamal. Let these fine burly men impale you.
Oh no, we're playing Killing Floor now. Fucking flesh pounds are after me. It's just like Fallout 4.
There's honeycombs inside the house.
Oh, come on, I'll grab them in a few minutes. I'm just doing this quest right now, just to, I guess, get design parts.
It is.
Would you goddamn cops do your goddamn job and get those goddamn hippies off my land?
Goddamn hippies. Oh, Captain's log.
You like?
I was hoping I could fucking go over that drop.
Lucky to be writing those. Can't believe what happened. Shouldn't believe it. That's what Doc Banana Man would say. Does that say Shrink? Shrink's gonna be earning his pay when we get home. If we get home, Larry and his boy, Derek, are clammed up. Joe's meal forever fevered. Like a flashlight. I look over my shoulder.
I can actually, oh my god, I can actually get a new
that.
ability.
Alright, I couldn't leave the last line because there's UI in the way.
Ah, fuck. I was fucking getting a thing.
Jamal.
Yes.
Aren't I beautiful?
What the fuck are you wearing? Is that the mask from
Nightmare Before Christmas?
Alright,
yeah.
That's what I thought it was.
Apparently,
Those
Tim
the
Burton
kids from the
has been
fucking,
involved in Secret World.
That's the kids
That's
that
one
go
of the kids.
that go for Oogie Boogie.
You can get all three of the kids' masks.
I'm sorry, but the only thing that I remember right now from Nightmare Before Christmas is Bunny. It's the only thing I can remember right now. What level am I right now? 8? Shit. I'm gonna hit level 100 tonight, boys.
Jamal.
Yes. Oh no.
What the?
Wait, are you Jesus? You can
Yes.
walk in water.
I'm Jesus.
Here,
I thought it was pronounced Jesus.
Oh.
Come down here, Jamal.
I
We all
will.
float down here. you can cartwheel off.
I know. I fucked up the animation though.
You're now in the
You
middle of
can't-
an
you
ocean
can't
full of
use-
enemies, though.
You cannot use the bike.
Yeah.
That's upsetting.
You're in the water. It'll mess up the bike.
I'll mess up the card that's in my spokes.
Wait, oh, I think, okay, so apparently it has to be, wait, okay, so my shotgun can't be the primary for that, okay, that's
I love having an overpowered follower follow me everywhere.
Fuck you.
You're literally my Helga right now. You know, what can you say? I'm building for Stealth Archer.
Well, hey, you wanna get something to eat at the diner?
Yeah, let's go. I'm kind of parched.
How do you upgrade weapons again? Or how do you, like, pull up the window
Oh,
again?
yes, I'd like one burger.
She's throwing up
I've
on you.
inventory, and then there's the
I'm not into that. I'm kink shaming.
upgrade is underneath, between your weapons and gear. I think there's probably some other button combo, but that's how I do it.
My fucking classic followers just standing there watching me die. I don't like where this is heading. Ancient Nordic ruins.
Also, you know what's scary?
The fact that,
the
classic
radio's
rock
still playing
here. Yes.
Yeah. it makes it feel too real to me.
Man, somebody had a little bit of an accident. Oh, that's shaped like that. This blood splatter is shaped like a penis. Look at that. Do you see that?
It is.
That blood splatter was deliberately drawn to be a penis.
Oh, it cost me things to assemble
Fuck,
it.
I wanted to stand on top of the toilet, but I can't. What are you wearing?
Jamal, say my name 3 times.
Do type Grimhood, Takeshi Master Quest. Fuck!
Why can't I, is there like a cap on how much I can upgrade things every now and then, or no?
Yes, greens can only be upgraded to 20. Blues can be upgraded to,
Well, I'm
something
putting
else.
I'm putting things in and I actually fold the whole thing up and it still won't fucking...
I don't know.
Oh well, fuck it, never...
What's wrong, Jamal?
Match. You have to match types, I think.
Upgrade.
Yeah.
It's like weapons upgrade weapons, armor upgrade armor.
Hey!
They don't have to be
upgraded my
like
belt. Now I have a level 2 wrestling belt.
Fucking...
Hey!
Any weapon can upgrade any weapon, and any armor piece can upgrade any armor piece. But
I really hope I can get a magical go attire going on in this game. Like
you can check the dressing room.
That's my end. Wait, how do I do that?
Press I.
Why is it my
And
why is my shotgun
right-
still my fucking look?
Bottom left, the very top tab is dressing room.
Oh my
Preview
god.
everything.
I'm gonna get to a safer location to do this.
Alright. I mean, you have me. Oh, the church is a safe place. Up ahead.
I'm trusting you, Graham.
It is! Watch. I'll even aggro something for you. Alright, yeah,
Okay,
run inside, quick!
I am inside. They're dead.
Yeah, see? Safe.
there's a honeycomb over here if you don't have it already.
Now...
Alright, that's
right.
weird. This person has the name of my cousin.
Christopher Martin?
Like, literally, that's my cousin's first and last name.
Does he live in New York?
No.
Or New England, I mean?
No. Ironically, the last time I saw him was inside of a church because it was his wedding.
Died.
No, he didn't. Alright.
He died! Alright, I'm gonna disband the raid. Will that disband the group as well, or...?
Probably. You're the wrong person to ask because you're the person that should know everything.
Yeah, you should know everything, Graham.
I should know everything.
Hey,
Alright, yeah, this group's gonna leave the raid. Oh, we did it! Alright, so yeah, now it's just us. Because Malady was, I think... Wait, let me invite Malady. They maybe are still online and I just don't know. Alright, yeah, they are. My bad. Turn into raid.
Okay.
Alright, and...
Yeah.
I just invite...
Fuck, this is kinda boring.
No problem, Swolby. I need all of the help I can get.
Yeah, how do I... Dang it!
Do
No, I'm
shield
trying
in this
to-
game?
Is there a way I could preview this?
I mean, I'll still let you help. I didn't mean to. I thought you were offline because the name was all grayed out.
Yeah, we don't know.
That just means you're not in this, you're just not within view of them.
Yeah. Well, if they're at the church, I'm still new. I don't know how to.
I don't
should
know what I am doing.
I mean, let's be fair. I've been stuck in Kingsmith for 26 levels, waiting.
Just waiting.
How excited are you to finally leave
Finally
Kingsmith?
play the game.
I have to finally get out. Yeah, I'm super stoked. I want to know where this story goes.
It says gray means out of area.
So let's...
BRB.
Okay.
No, you're not allowed.
It is.
Damn it. Okay, well, fuck it then.
BRB.
I'm glad I finally actually died because I didn't kind of think I just having everything die instantly next to me.
I'll level up again. When that happen?
I need to find fucking magical girl tire. Wait, I think I might have found it. This is it.
Just remember, they cost money.
I know.
Or not real life money, but like in-game
In-game
currency.
currency, of course. I mean, so far right now I have 2,000. I think that's what.
Nah, I died again.
Some of them are actually locked behind achievements too, so be careful. So invite Melody? Alright. Sorry, invite. Your group is... The group you're trying to join is full.
Remember, it's probably because we were in a raid group at first. At least that's what I'm assuming. Yeah, I think you gotta keep it a raid in order to keep a bunch of people.
Yeah, I did reconvert it back.
You're back.
So yeah, we are a raid still. Move a player to the other group. No other. Oh, I see how to do it now.
You did it.
I'm hoping this invites you to raid. Alright, so yeah, I clicked on your name in chat and put invite to raid, but then an empty text window popped up. There you are.
Whee! We did it.
We did it.
Fucking Walter White is staring at me. Do something about it, Grim. He keeps.
Have you ever thought about fucking his face?
Oh.
Only every breathing moment of my life.
Every second of every
Oh yeah, I was so
hour.
attracted to Michael in the middle.
I clock in for work for an 8-hour day and I think about fucking his face.
Oh, not even gently either. That's fucking rough.
I just want to fuck his throat.
The hell?
I want to fuck Walter White's
Friends
throat.
with all of you.
Think about that same thing.
Get me to see raid chat. How do?
Yeah, let's see. Raid chat is so just press Alt and click on the little plus on the chat window.
Oh, fuck.
And go down to like.
Was there a need to make ammo as well as fucking energy?
Yeah.
No.
Raid.
I have a heat meter as well as elemental energy.
It seems like this is a very convoluted bullshit.
So it's just there to add a mechanic.
I'm back, and I'm dead. Way to go for the buddy system, noob.
Yeah, what the fuck, noob?
I died 3 times, so it's okay.
Oh.
He tried, okay?
Turns out I can and will be stun locked by these giant dudes.
What time is it?
It's like
currently for you is 2:36 for you.
Alright, I probably got 30 minutes left. Gonna hop out tonight.
You can't leave. You
I
can't
have
leave.
to. I have school in the morning.
Define morning.
Morning.
Define morning.
Morning.
Ooh. Nice. Do you get to see what I'm previewing, by the way?
No, I don't get to see what you preview.
I'm trying to pick out my wardrobe. This is it. This is it.
That's not what Madoka would wear.
This is what Madoka would wear. It's close enough, okay?
Oh, fucking could be.
Oh, shit.
Cultist robes. Nice.
Oh, I have those. Look, see?
Nice. Wait. Oh no, I have to get this, but I can't make it pink. Fuck. Alright, this is my goal.
I can see you guys being able to parallel people pretty fast with this in this game because you can just kill things and you get the same experience as not being in a party.
Why isn't this in pink? It makes me angry.
Probably broken.
Alright, Jamal.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna choke you and take you to an environmental kill.
Oh shit, I saw tits for a second. Don't ban me.
See, I told you. I told you.
There was boobs. There was boobs and tits.
Is there dick? It's only fair if there's dick.
I don't think so.
No, well.
It's a shame, right?
Also kind of sexist when you think about it.
Sucking dick, what? What?
Tokyo, game has Solomon Island, Egypt, Transylvania, Tokyo, possibly upcoming Congo, or Moan, or Antarctica, or Ireland. I don't know.
I think that's Moon.
Fuck is this?
Miniland.
Oh, this is a graveyard.
Oh, okay.
If you die, you can this is where you come back.
Alright, what are we doing now?
I don't know. I'm following you. What does your story say?
Ask Dr. Banana Man about the Lady Margaret. So I guess that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We need to talk to Banana Man.
Luna. I loved Luna. She's my favorite Final Fantasy 15 character. It was teased by the devs as.
Oh shit, I got a text message. Deputy Amity here. I hope I'm not bothering you. Your boss managed to contact Sheriff Banana Man, and she thought it would be a good idea for her team to have your contact info. Swing by and say hello. You got it.
Swing by, say hello, and what's up with these deposits? See, that was a joke because you keep getting contacted by stupid idiots.
Hey, is it good that my weapon's level 7 now?
There's also Venice, New York, Seoul, London, and a more limited capacity. What,
How much
like
damage
a
does this now?
dungeon or raid?
Yeah, the higher the numbers, the more damage you do.
Yeah, that's the exact same amount of damage. Wow, that's huge.
Now I've got all these folks good as locked in here, and no sleeping it off for the morning either. The way things are headed, I'm seeing us outlasting our supplies. Not by much, if it comes to that. Andy finds what he can, but with the cruisers stuck propping up the barricade. So I'm obliged to anyone who'll poke around town a piece. Bring in the essentials. We can call it requisitioning. I don't think the store owners will be writing this one off as an act of God.
Oh, you millennials and your fatalist humor.
How old are you, Benny?
That's not important.
Older than us. No? Oh, we have to go kill Susie again, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna have to kill Susie again.
Damn.
Fucking
Susie.
Grim, can you do the Susie voice for me?
Yes!
2010 memes.
You shit bastard!
And whatever I try to do, it sounds like fucking voice crack and strong bad.
Sounds like Strong Bad.
Oh wait, no, it's Teen Girl Squad voice.
Teen Girl Squad! Cheerleader! So-and-so! What's your face? The ugly one! And Tompkins!
Fuck is wrong
please.
Stop! You aggro that one on
Look at this
purpose.
sick drift. Oh. Hello, I want the burger. I really don't like how everything has a long cooldown to it to like use. Some good service right there. Ooh. Smells like cookies.
Oh, hey. There's another player over there.
What's the player base for this game look like?
I have no idea.
Oh, back here, noob.
Like, half the time it's empty for me, but then the other half I go to, like, the event and I see tons and tons of people.
Oh, one more.
story ends in a showdown at the top of the skyscraper. Ooh, that's pretty cool.
Hey, that's
I guess there's another one.
one.
Alright, Jamal, have fun.
Are you letting me solo this?
There we
Oh,
go.
okay. I'm having fun, alright. This is easy. Fucking pshaw. It's fine. I'm just on fire.
100 players on Steam on low time, 1,000 at least overall, Steam and non-Steam. I assume 10k regular is enough for player. Huh.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not
I
so
thought it
bad.
was a lot smaller, to be honest. Because, like, I've never even heard of this game until, like, a few months ago.
It's unique. Look at that.
It is pretty fun.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I finished my dailies.
Yeah, I mean, it's no WoW, but I mean, what is?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, when you
Cut
try
off.
to compare it, like every MMO to WoW, you're just going to be let down. Just take it as its own thing.
Yeah, right.
It really
Exactly.
is.
I mean, because Waz and I always had the idea of, like, doing, like, I don't know, a certain night out of the week we would just download a really bad MMO or something and then just fuck around
What?
with it.
Like, World?
Yeah,
Worlds is more of a chat, like, online chat room, though, rather than the MMO.
Like, we always thought about doing stuff like that.
Local bounty detected. Initiated.
Oh no, my fire stuff doesn't work on the firefighter. Who would have fucking thought about that?
Who would have thunk?
Who would have thunk?
Hawthorne, you're almost dead.
I know.
Hit tab, you might have some
Okay.
potions.
I already used them all.
You have any potions or food? Gartha has a player cap of 100.
How the fuck do you keep dying? I've died once.
Well, you see, there was this firework that had 30 things around it that stun locked me, so I couldn't move until I died. And then I went to go grab my body, I died again because I was half health.
I was
I'm actually
AFK.
very
I'm back
proud
now,
to say
though.
that I've only died once, and now
It's been
because
really easy
someone
with
told me
Benny
to
here.
do r/reset.
That's why we're
You
doing
have
the
like a
buddies.
level 30 with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Grim's for the most part just watching me.
Constantly healing you, getting rid of
I
extra
will
damage.
always protect you, Miduka. Other games have taken priority, whether MOBA or whatever PUG is. Oh, PlayerUnknown's Battleground.
Yeah, we are known
Yeah.
to play that.
They all play that. I have yet to join the Assault.
At this moment, you probably don't want to.
I probably don't.
I mean, right now it's got mostly negative reviews on Steam, because there's a lot of drama surrounding it right now.
Every game nowadays
So,
has negative reviews.
was it because of what's the deal with PUG drama?
Too long
Figures
to
are
read of it,
assholes.
because I don't really know that much about it, is the developer is a cunt. For
The
lack of a
developer
better
keeps
term.
finding games that have slight similarities to PUBG, and he's like trying to get them taken down because he's calling them PUBG copycats and shit.
That
Even
sounds
though,
dumb.
like, PUBG is fairly new, and a lot of these games have been in production for fucking years, and he has not made.
In his defense, Fortnite is completely bullshit.
Yeah,
it
it
does,
is, yeah.
but it's 100% jumped on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
But Fortnite has the unique ability where people
I just want to
like,
say that
when they
Fortnite's
see each
battle
other,
royale
they
mode
hunker
is
down
actually
and
kind
make
of
stuff.
polished.
Yeah.
Like it
Fortnite
looks like
At
it's
least
a game that
Fortnite's
would
a
run.
finished game.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
I,
Shots
like
fired.
I like PUBG, but like, there's definitely a lot of stuff I don't like about it.
Like how it's broken.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I don't like that either.
I'm lucky if I get 70 FPS. I know that's like, ooh,
I'm lucky if
70.
I get 30, man.
Yeah. There's a lot of things I would like to see.
How do you come up here?
fixed. I'd like to see new maps, but
I'd like to see hats.
cosmetic. Oh, wait, they already have those.
It's
They
like
also
there's
have
some of the
hats
boats
that-
have them on the up here on the front.
Dance with us, girl. Dance with us.
epidemic tonight.
Put in the closet.
He's starting to get high enough level to dodge mobs.
I think so. I'm level 8, so.
Yeah, I'm level 8 as well.
How far are you in level 8?
I gotta bring the ammo to Andy.
He's upstairs.
He goes off to college soon.
There's always hundreds of players around, low thousands, regular players, enough to guild group, especially if tank, etc. Huh. Alright.
Where you going, noob?
Let's check in Discord. Sure.
Good to see you.
Oh, I got another cutscene.
Now the Walking Dead? I can wrap my head around that. They're dead folk, just walking is all. But those other things? Tall and pale.
Seriously, whenever I hear
slimy
this
as
guy's voice, I
maggots,
think it's something completely
They
different.
washed up
I'm
with
trying
the
to remember
fog.
what the hell that is.
They came and dragged the townsfolk out to sea. Drowned them. Just like my dad with the kittens. He took them out to sea in a garbage bag. Said they were gonna go for a swim. Said they needed the exercise. They never came back. A few years later, neither did my dad. Jeez, I still miss those kittens. The townsfolk, they did come back, dragging what looked like eggs. The big ones, they come out of those eggs, like something from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They're littered all over the place and guarded, and I'm thinking to myself, Andy, that's gotta mean something. That's gotta be a clue. Why keep an eye on something if it ain't valuable? That's police work. That's deduction, plain and simple.
This guy's
Oh shit, Jesus.
by listening.
What came first,
Tried to
the
look at the
maggot
wiki
or
for
the
this
egg?
website or this game.
Obviously the egg, right?
I want to figure out who this guy's voice actor is. I want to know what else he's done. He reminds me of somebody else.
Warthorn.
You're fine.
I'd suggest finding Barry Blue Jeans and teaming up.
Barry Blue Jeans does not.
Can you handle this game on your own?
Maybe.
Or at least you'll have a melody with you.
Actually, whenever you get off, I'm probably gonna go. Because you gotta remember, if it's 3 a.m. for you, it's 4 a.m. for me.
Oh jeez, yeah, you're right. Alright. Later.
But I will definitely actually play more of this game. Probably not for Spookfest, but we'll probably pick it up afterwards, I guess.
Yeah, if you want, like, get into the story, read the stuff. It's interesting. Especially
It is
the
quite
puzzles.
fun. But you know my stance on MMOs.
Yeah, I know your stand.
But I will
Alrighty.
be interested in playing more of this. This is actually kind of fun. I like the
Good
co-op
night.
aspect of it.
Yeah, good night, guys.
So
Good
I think that's the end of the stream as well. So thanks for hanging out, everybody that came here from somebody hosted me. I appreciate it. Hope you guys stick around, but if you don't, I don't blame you. Anyways, everybody have a good night. I have to go to work tomorrow in like 10 hours, and I don't want to do that. I still don't even know what game we're playing tomorrow night either. It's probably going to be Resident Evil 4 Alien Isolation. Depends on what I want to play.
Resident Evil.
Or that, I can continue my dating sim.
Resident Evil.
I have the second one.
You just want to see the outcome of that dating sim, don't you?
I really do.
Anyways, have a good night, y'all.
Everyone have a good night. Thanks for tuning in.
And watch everybody leave.
Suck my ass.
Suck his ass.
My granny, while on her deathbed, she turned and said to me, "Why must you view life so morbidly? I tried to teach you right, but somewhere I went wrong. 'Cause you sing those death, death, devil, devil, evil, evil songs. When 6 pallbearers put her down and laid her body in the ground, my eyes were wet, my face was very long. The pastor said, "Son, here you are. Won't you please take this guitar? Sing, dear departed granny, one last song." And I sang death, death, devil, 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 evil, 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 evil songs. Hell, you know that's how I get along. The world is full of tragedy, so how can it be wrong? Singing death, 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 devil. devil, devil, evil, evil songs. Well, I was shopping at Hot Topic, and I was walking out the door when two dumb jocks came up to me. They said, "Hey, fag, it ain't Halloween," and they kicked my lipstick to the floor. And I sang death, death, devil, 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 evil, 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 evil songs. Hell, you know that's how I get along. The world is full of idiots, so how can it be wrong? Singing death, 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 devil, devil, evil, evil songs. Well, I went down to church on Sunday. I sat up front in a pew. The priest said, "Jesus and Mary too, son, what the devil's got into you? Get up and sing a hymn or two." And I sang death, death, devil, 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 evil, 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 evil songs. And you know that's how I get along. The world's full of hypocrisy, so how can it be wrong? Singing death, 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 devil, devil, evil, evil songs. I was invited to the White House. The president pulled me aside. He said, "Son, sing us a song of peace for those evildoers in the Middle East." I rolled my eyes and kicked this rhyme. I sang death, death, devil, 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 evil, 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 evil songs. Hell, you know that's how I get along. The world is full of W's, so how can it be wrong? Singing death, 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 devil, devil, evil, evil songs. Well, then I died and went to hell. I could tell right away by the awful smell that this was clearly not the pearly gates. The devil said, "Come here, young man. My wife and I are your biggest fans." So naturally I felt I had it made. Well, then he reached into an iron chest and he picked the tool that he felt was best. And then he jabbed me in the schlong with a pitchfork that had sharpened prongs. He turned to me and winked and sang this song. He sang death, death, devil, 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 evil, 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 evil songs. Yeah, I know that's how you got along. I find your song hilarious, but now your soul's precarious. Singing your death, 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 devil, devil, evil, evil songs. I'm just kidding, kid. Welcome to hell. Enjoy the buffet. Death, death, devil, 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 evil, 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 evil songs. Hell, you know that's how we get along. The world is full of sinners, so how can it be wrong? Singing death, 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 devil, devil, evil, evil songs.